All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. As we begin our meeting today, and on behalf of Ottawa City Council, I wish to acknowledge that Ottawa is built on unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory. Les peuples de la nation Algonquin-Anishinaabe vivent sur
Ottawa,
ce
built on
territoire.
unceded Anishinaabe territory, the people of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and present have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The City of Ottawa honors the people and lands of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation. We are grateful to all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contribution to this land.
Please rise for a moment of personal reflection. Thank you. Merci. Please remain standing for the playing of our national anthem. Thank you. Merci. I'll ask now for the roll call.
Councillor Luloff.
Good morning.
Councillor Dudas.
Present.
Councillor Hill.
Present.
Councillor Curry.
Here.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor Gower.
Here.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Johnson.
Here.
Councillor Devine.
Here.
Councillor Bradley.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseillère Plante.
Hey, yo.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor Troster.
Here.
Councillor Leeper.
Good morning.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Here.
Councillor Carr.
Here.
Councillor Kitts. Councillor Skalski.
Here.
Councillor Brown.
Here.
Conseiller Desroches.
Here.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Councillor Lowe.
Present.
Mayor Sutcliffe.
Here.
Monsieur le maire, nous avons quorum.
You have quorum.
Confirmation of minutes from the council meeting of February 25th. Are those carried? Are there any declarations of interest? Responses to inquiries. With the will of council, I'm going to ask that we hold the second item, the Canada Lakes Golf Course lands. Okay, thank you. Councillor Kitts did advise that she would not be able to attend the meeting. Motion to introduce reports. Councillor Lowe.
That the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee Report 33, Community Services Committee Report 21, Finance and Corporate Services Committee Report 34, Planning and Housing Committee Report 61, Public Works and Infrastructure Committee Report 24, and the report from the City Clerk entitled Summary of Roll and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of February 25th, 2026, received and considered.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I was listening to that at 1.5 speed, but thank you for reading it so quickly. Is that carried? From Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, item 10.1 is the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 635 and 891 Jenkinson Road.
Could we hold that? Can we hold that, please?
Yep. Item 10.2 is the Wetland Omnibus Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment. Is that carried?
Carried.
Dissent.
Okay, thank you. Item 10.3 is the amendments to align the Transportation Master Plan with the official plan. There is a technical amendment for that, which we can deal with quickly if everybody's okay with that. Councillor Brown?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Whereas the proposed amendments to the rights-of-way protection requirements in Schedule C16 of the official plan as detailed in Appendix D of Document 1 of the report inadvertently misprinted a provision as a result of a typographical error, be it resolved that Policy 2.11E16 be entirely replaced with the following text: arterial road to arterial road, 2 overlapping 5-meter by 15-meter triangles.
Is that carried? And then the item is amended. Is that carried?
Carried.
Item 10.4 is a minor zoning bylaw amendment for part of 6659 Franktown Road, and we have a technical amendment for that as well, which we can deal with quickly if everyone's okay. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas Document 1, Location Map, Zoning Key Map and Report mentioned inadvertently omitted the holding symbol H from the new zoning code, be it resolved that Document 1 be replaced with the map attached, and be it further resolved that pursuant to subsection 3417 of the Planning Act, no further notice be given.
All right, is the technical amendment carried?
Carried.
The item is amended. Is that carried?
Carried.
Item 10.5 is the motion from Councillor Skalsky related to delegated authority of Section 65 of the Drainage Act. And we actually have a replacement motion with a technical amendment in it. If everyone's okay with us dealing with that quickly. Councillor Skalsky.
Do you want me just to read the amendment?
Sure.
Okay, so be it further resolved that any costs associated with engineer appointments under this delegated authority be funded by revenues, and that all financial administration, including budgeting, establishing the capital project reserve use and accounting treatment, remain subject to the city's established financial policies and controls.
All right, is that replacement motion approved? Carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Okay, from Community Services Committee, we have 11.1, the Community Funding Framework Midterm Review. Is that carried? 11.2, Community Safety and Wellbeing Legislative Review. Is that carried?
Carried.
11.3, Unsheltered Homelessness Outreach Model. Is that carried?
Carried.
From Finance Committee, we have 12.1, Advancing Indigenous Relations in the City of Ottawa. Is that received?
Received.
Item 12.2 is the Brownfield Grant Application for 299 City Centre Avenue. Is that carried?
Carried.
Dissent.
Okay. Noting the dissent. We will hold item 12.3 on the Byward Market. Item 12.4 is the acquisition of 377 O'Connor Street. Is that carried? Oh, sorry. Well, let's go back to item 12.1 because we should be saying that it's received and approved. So item 12.1, is that received and carried? Okay, thank you. Item 12.5 is the motion from Councillor Kitts on procurement practices pilot projects. Is that carried? Thank you. Was there a dissent? No? Okay, thank you.
For the Byward Market one, did we hold it?
We did.
We did, okay.
Yeah, don't worry. From Planning and Housing Committee, 13.1 is the Transportation Master Plan Development Charges Amendment. Is that carried?
Carried.
Dissent.
Sorry, could you repeat the dissent?
Yeah, it's Councillor Rush, dissent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. from Public Works and Infrastructure, 14.1 is the new private approach bylaw. Is that carried? 14.2 is a motion from Councillor Lowe on water shield parking. Is that carried?
Dissent.
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 Yeah.
Yeas and nays,
Dissent.
please. Okay, we'll do a yeas and nays on that one, please.
Thank you.
Conseiller Desroches.
No.
Councillor Menard.
No.
Councillor Skalsky.
Yes.
Councillor Troster.
Yes.
Councillor Carr.
No.
Councillor Luloff.
Yes.
Conseillère Plante.
No.
Councillor Kitts. Councillor Johnson.
No.
Councillor Kelly.
Yes.
Councillor Dudas.
Yes.
Councillor Tierney.
Yes.
Councillor Leeper.
No.
Councillor King.
No.
Councillor Brockington.
Yes.
Councillor Lowe.
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
No.
Councillor Bradley.
No.
Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Councillor Curry.
Yes.
Councillor Hill.
No.
Councillor Gower.
Yes.
Councillor Devine.
Yes.
Councillor Hubley.
Yes.
Mayor Sutcliffe.
Yes.
14 yeas, 10 nays.
Okay, that's carried. 14.3 is the motion from Councillor Kitts on extension of delegated authority for seasonal road closures. Is that carried? And the bulk consent agenda, is that carried?
Carried.
Okay, let's go back to item 7, which is the response to inquiries. And I did have a couple of questions for staff related to the Canada Lakes Golf Course lands response. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. And obviously, I want to acknowledge the level of concern on the part of residents on what's been happening on the site. And the inquiry notes that the city is contracting third parties to consult. Can you give a bit of a rundown on the scope of their work and what they've been doing so far?
Sure, through the mayor to council. So there was some work was already started before the last motion of council, but that'll only increase the number of third parties involved. Right now, we have contracted WSP on behalf of the city of Ottawa to do a peer review and be on site to monitor what is going on as it relates to the site works the proponent is involved in right now that would involve Mercury and the cleanup work that they are undertaking. And that is being led by my colleague in strategic initiatives. But one of the things that we are continuing updating and reporting on, their report back to us in terms of their evaluation of the work plan will be one of the documents we're going to post this week when the next newsletter goes out as part of this. We are also looking at bringing on a drainage engineer to do some proactive work as a result of the motion that we were given, and we hope to announce that work soon, again, being done by my colleague in infrastructure. We also, under this motion, will be peer reviewing every major or substantive piece of work we get. We also have a lot of in-staff review going on and on-site inspection and monitoring. So we don't expect a number of major studies to come from the proponent in the short term, but it is something that we'll be peer reviewing. And I believe my legal colleague is also doing some peer review from a legal opinion as it relates to the additional inquiry we have outstanding that is coming to the Environment Committee.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. In addition to the outstanding motion from January 28th regarding municipal options, and then the inquiry that my friend just indicated about the municipal liability questions.
Right. Okay. So just to confirm, the January 28th motion talked about a number of initiatives for the city to explore. That work is well underway now?
Well underway, and the WSP arrangement was already in place before that motion.
Yeah, okay. And obviously all of these, what we're talking about goes above and beyond what we would normally be doing in a situation like this. That's fair to say?
Absolutely, much more aggressive than we would do in any other file.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to hear a little bit about what kind of interaction there's been with the Ministry of the Provincial Ministry of the Environment on this, because I know that there have been conversations that have taken place at the political level and at the staff level. Can you just sort of reiterate what's been discussed with the ministry?
Sure. We've talked to senior regional officials who take care of the Ottawa area for the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. They have early when this work was starting to happen on site and the councillor was bringing inquiries and motions to council, we were quite engaged trying to get some formal statement from the ministry. They were unable to provide one. They have routinely told us that there is a record of site condition process under the Environmental Protection Act, and they're not commenting further. So we have shared with them some of the concerns, but at this point we are not giving them regular updates of the full suite of concerns that residents have. They believe that this will be addressed through their process, and so we have redirected our energy into communicating facts to the community through the website and the newsletter.
Okay, but the concerns have been shared with the ministry.
Yes,
correct?
they know that there is a lot of community concern.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Leeper?
Thank you very much. Just as we undertake the peer review process, I'm wondering what kind of resources that's taking and if we have an idea of what the costs are going to be over the course of this project yet.
So in our departmental budgets, we always assume that there will be a certain degree of unexpected consultant work that we might need to tap into. I think that this was raised at a previous council meeting, but we are not able to quantify the extent of this work right now, but it is something we're going to monitor. I don't know if my colleagues who have engaged these contracts have anything else to add.
No, I just reiterate what my colleague has said. So the initial phase of work with WSP really is focused on peer review of the control measures that were put in place. So it's really looking at the plan itself and providing additional recommendations. That is a really small contract when we're currently working with WSP to get the full costing on the broader work that we're looking to engage in with. We can report back at a future
time. So how much is that, that
it's under 10,000.
I'm sorry?
It's under 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be interested in getting sort of regular reporting of the costs of that peer review as those contracts get signed and we start to understand the financial implications of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to item 10.1, the official plan amendment related to Jenkinson Road. Councillor Gower.
Yeah, thank you. There's been a lot of interest in this file from Stittsville residents because the quarry is just west of us along the Trans-Canada Trail. And I just had a quick comment building on an idea that Chair Brown raised at Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee last week. So when we have landfills in Ontario, one of the conditions the province often requires is a public liaison committee, which is a formal body. It's made up of the public and the landfill operators and local councillors and so on. It's a useful group, and we have one for the waste management landfill on Carp Road. There's no formal requirement for that kind of committee for quarries, but quarries still have a pretty big impact, a major impact on the surrounding community and natural areas. So what I'm thinking is, in the absence of a formal requirement for that kind of committee, I would still love to see some kind of group established with participation from Tomlinson, from Friends of Stittsville Wetlands, from Indigenous representatives, from rural landowners, a lot of the people who weighed in on this file. And it's a group that I don't know what the exact formation would be, but I see them as playing a role in fostering collaboration and communication between Tomlinson and the public. There's also interest in the rehabilitation work, in forest rehabilitation, wetland rehabilitation nearby. So to get started on this, Councillor Brown and I are going to extend an invitation to Tomlinson and some of these other stakeholders to meet in the next few weeks and at least open up a dialogue and start to look at what kind of framework we could develop. Provincial policy has very strong language that prioritizes designation of aggregate quarries, including that cities allow for as much mineral aggregate resources as is realistically possible, that they be made available close to market. So there's a strong imperative that a city like Ottawa has to allow this. But the provincial policy also requires that aggregate extraction has to be undertaken in a way that minimizes social, economic, and environmental impacts. And I think having a strong and meaningful collaboration between Tomlinson and the community would go a very long way to balance both of these requirements. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gower. Councillor Luloff.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomlinson did a great deal of work, and we heard about this at ARAC, and I realize that not everybody is able to pay attention to every ARAC discussion. I get it. You know, if you're not on a committee, perhaps you don't have the time to tune into it, and I get that. Tomlinson did a great deal of work and got the Indigenous partners on board to support this. This file has been delayed over and over and over again due to improper notification procedures. These were accidents by staff. It's been a very frustrating process. It was clear when this was presented at committee that the proponent has done quite a bit of work with those who are concerned. I don't think that delaying this any further is going to change the result. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Luloff. Is that item carried?
Carried.
All right, let's move to item 12.3, the Byward Market Revitalization Framework and Coordinated Redevelopment Program. Councillor Plante has a couple of directions and a few motions, so perhaps you could introduce those now, and then we could open it up if anybody has any questions.
Oui, merci. And I'm asking my colleagues for your patience because there's quite a few. Thank you. Direction to staff. While city staff work to develop a community benefits framework scheduled to be completed in 2027, that staff be directed in an appropriate time to consider whether the Byward Market Redevelopment Program projects would be a candidate for a community benefits framework. The Byward Market Revitalization Framework and Redevelopment Program will contain many key milestone and dates related to phased construction completion, street closures and opening during construction and/or events, estimated project timelines, completion, and useful information for vendors, businesses, residents, and visitors as the goal of the public realm plan are put into action. Direction. Staff are directed to develop and maintain a dedicated City of Ottawa webpage for the Byward Market through design, construction, implementation with review phases of the project. The webpage should serve as a centralized source of information for public and interest holders, including project updates, timelines, consultation opportunities, key milestones, event information, and other relevant notices related to the market and ongoing revitalization. And I want to thank Councillor Carr for seconding this one on daycare spaces, whereas Councillor Plante has highlighted that there exists a gap in childcare services for parents who are nighttime workers, and whereas CSSD has been directed to develop a business case and capital funding plan to explore the feasibility to maintain and continuity of municipally operated French language childcare services within Lowertown and Sandy Hill, and we're back to community services with the findings of a business case no later than Q1 2027. Therefore, be it resolved that CSSD include a priority consideration for licensed early learning and childcare spaces to assist with future growth plans of children and youth recreation programs in the Byward Market as part of reporting back to the aforementioned business case that will be reported back to community services in Q1 of 2027. Be it further resolved that the priority consideration for childcare spaces in the market consider the needs assessment of both daytime and nighttime services for the diversity of parents who work in the Byward Market. Whereas Councillor Brockington has seconded this one, whereas public washroom access in the Byward Market is limited, and whereas public washrooms are open in 55 Byward Market Square during the day, have extended hours under supervision of security, and whereas the provision of temporary portable toilets rentals is inadequate as public washroom strategy for the Byward Market, and whereas the Gotta Go campaign has supported by several councillors, and therefore be it resolved that recommendation 3 be amended to add a short-term action to develop a recommended 24/7 public washroom strategy for the Byward Market and report back to council in 2027. And thank you to Councillor Brown, who seconded this one on the concentration of services. Whereas many delegations at Finance and Corporate Service Committee on the Byward Market Revitalization Framework and Redevelopment Program on March 3rd, 2026, delegated in support of the capital infrastructure investments and flexible balance between pedestrianization and parking, while also highlighting the need to address social service concentration. Whereas document 2.11.1 of the Byward Market Revitalization Measurement Framework cites the implementing the unsheltered homelessness outreach model as an action under the safety and well-being of all areas of focus, whereas the Unsheltered Homeless Outreach Model report rises to Council March 11th, 2026, whereas the report states the highest number of recorded unsheltered individuals reached 405, with encampments and concentrated in downtown neighborhoods like Centertown, Lowertown, and Sandy Hill. Compounding the unsheltered homelessness crisis is the toxic drug crisis the city is facing. In 2024, there were 941 overdose-related emergency department visits and 166 opioid-related deaths. The highest rates were in Lowertown West and East, Water Ridge Village, and Centertown West. 2025 population survey showed 41% of downtown residents feel unsafe walking around after dark, and over 65% of residents feel their neighborhood has worsened in the last 2 years, citing public drug use and discarded needles as key concerns. Whereas delegate submissions consistently raise the issue of social disorder, the intersection of homelessness, substance use, and crime and safety in their delegations, whereas the Rideau Business Improvement Area commissioned a public opinion survey of residents, which part of the delegation submissions for this item found in 2025 the top 2 barriers to visiting the downtown were resident perception of crime and safety and homelessness, whereas housing first, including transitional and supportive housing with better mental health and addiction wraparound services, remains a longer-term priority focus for this term of council priorities. I wholeheartedly support through the Housing and Homelessness 10-year plan refresh, the Housing Acceleration Plan, and Downtown Revitalization Framework, that it requires federal and provincial government support to be achievable systems-wide, whereas this short to longer-term focus actions on the Byward Market is necessary to delivering these larger agendas, whereas support for capital infrastructure investments in the Byward Market is welcome, but not bear fruit of visitation and increased tourism if perception of crime, safety, and homelessness are not addressed citywide. Therefore, be it resolved that the Byward Market Revitalization Framework and its measurement framework amend the area of focus of the safety well-being for all to include the following objective: identify strategies to address the impact of concentration of services in Ward 12. Be it further resolved that medium-term actions under this area of focus will include the steering committee to identify potential strategies to achieve this objective, some of which may require future consideration by the appropriate steering committees in council. Prochain. Oh, sorry, yes, okay, it's there. Thank you, Councillor Leeper, for seconding this one, whereas the Byward Market Revitalization Steering Committee established in February 2025, recognizing that revitalizing the Byward Market requires a whole-of-city approach involving multiple city departments, including OPS, OPH, as well as collaboration with other levels of government to the broader interest holder community. And whereas there's a gap in the public governance for the implementation of the framework and redevelopment plan, therefore be it resolved that the steering committee co-chairs provide a monthly update to the Ward 12 councillor on its coordinated activities related to city-led initiatives in the Byward Market. Be it further resolved that staff undertake a functional review of existing committee and working groups related to the Byward Market and downtown revitalization, and report back to Finance and Corporate Committee in Q3 of 2026 with recommendations regarding the need for additional external engagement and advisory strategies. I want to thank Councillor Dudas, who loves bollards as much as I do. Whereas the Byward Market Public Realm Plan was approved unanimously by City Council in 2021 and establishes a long-term vision for transforming the streets and public spaces into vibrant, people-focused civic spaces in accordance with the official plan. And whereas Council has reaffirmed its commitment to the revitalization of the Byward Market downtown recovery through the City of Ottawa Strategic Plan and Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan, whereas the Byward Market Redevelopment Program implements council direction by advancing a long-term framework for streets and public spaces that prioritize pedestrians, public gathering, high-quality civic spaces while maintaining necessary access for businesses, residents, deliveries, and emergency vehicles. Whereas the Byward Market functions as a mixed-use district that relies on a balance of transportation modes and operational flexibility to support local businesses, residents, and visitors. Whereas opportunities to exist to test temporary and adaptable approaches to the use of streets and public spaces in advance of permanent capital investments identified in the redevelopment program. Whereas the report identifies the York Street Plaza will proceed to the design phase, which includes consideration of safety measures and operational efficiencies to better support regular use and programming, including the potential use of bollards and other access management tools. Whereas the report identifies a district-wide placemaking initiative in 2026 to be delivered in partnership with the BMDA, which will activate plazas and underutilized public spaces using temporary and adaptable elements. And whereas testing temporary people-focused use of streets and public spaces during peak periods can provide the Byward Market specific data and operational experience to inform the design phase for future permanent public realm investment. Therefore, be it resolved that 1, staff be directed to work with the BMDA to develop a flexible plan for temporary and pilot initiatives that allow for safe, full, or partial pedestrianization of key streets and public spaces within the district, including but not limited to George, York, William, and Byward Market Square during high-impact weekends, holidays, and events where operationally feasible. Placemaking initiative be implemented on a temporary and adaptable basis during the 2026 season, that is this summer, including weekends between Canada Day and Labor Day, in order to test pedestrian-focused programming while maintaining appropriate access for businesses, residents, deliveries, and emergency services. Staff collect Byward Market-specific data on operational experience across the different seasons and programming conditions, including impacts on mobility, business operations, visitor experience, safety, to help inform the design phase of future permanent public realm investments within the district. 4, amend the report recommendation directing staff to report back to Finance and Corporate Services Committee and Council in 2027, as described in this report, including as follows: the results of the option analysis for 70 Clarence Street and recommended next steps, an update on the design of 55 Byward Market Square and York Street Plaza, a recommended parking and access strategy for the Byward Market, recommended financing model for the redevelopment program, a recommended project sequencing schedule, and staff report back on placemaking and pedestrianization pilot initiatives. 5, staff report back to Council on the findings and lessons learned from these pilot initiatives, including feedback from businesses, residents, and visitors as part of the 2027 reporting on the Byward Market Revitalization Program. As future capital projects proceed, including the York Street Plaza project, staff evaluate appropriate long-term approaches to access management through detailed design process, which may include measures such as timed access, removable or retractable bollards where appropriate, other design tools that support pedestrian priority spaces while maintaining necessary operational access for businesses, residents, deliveries, and emergency services, consistent with council-approved plans. 7, staff continue to engage local businesses, residents, and stakeholders through planning and design process to ensure that curbside access, loading, deliveries, emergency, and business continuity remain integral considerations as redevelopment advances. I think, is that it? C'est tout? Okay, c'est tout. Merci beaucoup. Sorry about that.
Merci à vous. Maybe I'll just start by asking staff to comment. First of all, are staff comfortable with the 2 directions?
We can take the directions.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll just go through the different motions. So the motion on daycare spaces, could we get a staff reaction to the motion on daycare spaces?
Yes, Chair. Staff are okay with the motion.
Okay, thank you. The motion on public washrooms?
Yes, we support that one.
Okay, thank you. The motion on service concentration, I'll just note the motion on service concentration seems to me to be broader in scope than just the Byward Market. And so it's a little bit more than just related to this Byward Market plan. But I just want to see how staff feel about it.
Chair, staff are amenable to doing the review and reporting back to the appropriate standing committee.
Okay, thank you. The motion on the steering committee?
Yeah, we support that one.
Okay, thank you. And then on the pedestrianization and bollards?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Troster?
Thank you so much, Mayor. I was just wondering if you could clarify, so we received $20 million from the Ottawa, Ontario deal, and I know a chunk of that was supposed to go into Byward. I know some of it has gone into Centertown for the Street Seats program and also for urban outreach. I'm just wondering if you could let me know how much of that 20 million is going into this Byward plan that we're passing today and what those elements are that'll be covered by that funding.
Through you, Mayor. There is 1.8 million of the total funding that was allocated to the detailed design of William Street pedestrianization. That work is complete. There was an additional 10 million that was allocated to the construction of William Street. And given current economic conditions and concerns from the businesses, the recommended path forward is to realign that work, hoping for stronger economic conditions because businesses are concerned about the dual impact of construction along with an uncertain economic environment, and to realign that with work related to 55 Byward Market, so the Market Mall building.
So does that mean we'll be giving back the $10 million to the province that was allocated to William Street?
Staff are currently in discussions with the province with regards to reallocating those funds to priority actions for downtown that support bringing in or attracting more residents and visitors into the Byward Market and downtown who will support the businesses by shopping and eating in the restaurants, et cetera, as well as supporting enhanced security measures so that the overall experience is better and people are feeling comfortable and safe to return downtown. Those discussions are ongoing.
So you're seeking to ask the province if you can reallocate the 10 million instead of giving it back. And just to be clear, you said that there were concerns from businesses. It was about the impact of construction. That's pretty short term, am I correct?
It is. So the concern from businesses was actually multifold and mixed. So the concern related to the loss of parking spaces. So the market area businesses are concerned that without street level parking, that would diminish access to their stores. There was concern about the construction impacts, and yes, that is expected through a project like this, but I think it was compounded and created more uncertainty during this period where the economy is quite fragile. So the concern was adding this on to the current economic conditions is really going to have a significant impact, and businesses were very concerned about their ability to remain financially viable through all of those impacts. And there, just to note, like what we were thinking about as well is they are very small local businesses, so a little bit more vulnerable to these types of circumstances.
How many parking spots were on William Street and how many would have been removed with the redevelopment?
22.
And how many parking spots are available in the Byward?
In the broad area of the Byward Market, there's 5,100 parking spots. That's a mix of public and private, some directly in the core and some within a walking distance, like a reasonable walking distance.
So there's 5,000 parking spots in the market and businesses did not want to lose 22. So therefore we are not doing what we put on Engage Ottawa and said we would do to William Street.
Yes, but for the range of factors, not just the parking removal. That impact, that concern about construction impact, that is typical. We think that we're in a particular economic condition where all of those impacts compound and would have a detrimental impact on those small businesses.
Okay, but the redevelopment could have a positive impact.
Over the longer term, and the intention is that this work will happen. It's being prioritized to align with other work that is within the overall redevelopment plan.
Okay, well, I will just publicly share my frustration. You all know I've run into this in other areas of my ward. There are 5,000 parking spots in the market. Removing 22 out of 5,000. I understand some of those businesses feel very strongly that those specific spots are important, but this is a consistent problem when it comes to visionary city building projects that have the potential in the medium and long term to bring tremendous economic vitality and also community vitality to an area that concerns about street parking are the #1 reason why they get kiboshed. And so, you know, if the concern was short-term construction and not just removal of parking, I actually doubt that we would be eliminating this project at this point. So I just wanted to flag my frustration with that because I've dealt with in other parts of my neighborhood, and often the perception from businesses of the importance of specific street parking spots is contrary to what the data is actually telling us. And I just need to remind all of us there are 5,000 parking spots in the market and the LRT station, but I digress. Would it come back to council if we end up having to return the $10 million? Would there be a decision point for council about whether to proceed or not?
Through you, Mayor. So the As indicated in the report, so staff do intend to provide an information memo to council with regards to funding sources for the measures that were included in the revitalization framework, so the short-term measures in particular. And so through that, we would be reporting back, yes.
Okay. I just want to state, if we were offered $10 million to do a project and we end up giving the money back to the province, that's extremely problematic from my perspective, so I hope we can renegotiate that. Just one more question on Councillor Plant's public bathroom strategy, which of course I absolutely support. There's been a lot of design work that's gone into the proposed public bathroom for Somerset Ward for Chinatown, specifically upfront design costs for a highly used urban public bathroom. Is that something that you think could be used for potential strategy in the market or in other parts of the city?
So with regards to Councillor Plant's motion, our intention would be to look at that along with other opportunities to ensure that there's adequate washing facilities within the market.
Okay, because I just think recreating the wheel is kind of silly when there's been a lot of upfront design costs on sort of a very robust kind of bulletproof, highly maintained facility designed for an urban environment, which of course I'm very supportive of. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Curry.
Thank you. So just a couple of comments and questions. The overnight daycare, that's something that we've had in Canada on Leggett Drive for about 25 years. So the children's place might be a good place for you to go and talk to them about how they have that working. 24-hour care plus medically fragile children, 24 hours. It's an excellent model, so it's something you might want to look at if you want to talk to them. The Engage Ottawa page. Interestingly, in the last couple of weeks here, we've had 2 councillors put forward a request to have an Engage Ottawa page on a major project. One is coming before the project started, another is coming after the project had started, and residents were not aware. Do you think that this is something that councillors have to put forward to ask for an Engage Ottawa page for something like this, or is this something the city would do? Like, do you need a councillor to move a motion to say you need an Engage Ottawa page?
Through you, Mayor. I'll begin that response and see if any colleagues want to add, because I think the question is broader than Byward Market. I just want to clarify that with regards to the Byward Market, there is an Engage Ottawa page that does talk about the overall revitalization and the redevelopment. The engagement was highly focused on the next phase of work, which at the time was William Street. And so this is just broadening it out a little bit further, but just wanted to provide the clarity that there has been engagement and there is a Byward Market Engage Ottawa page.
Okay, to the second part of my question, is this something that councillors need to put forward after construction has started or before, or something the city is supposed to be doing proactively?
Mr. Mayor, perhaps I can also provide a broader perspective around all of the renewal projects that we do around the city. So that is part of our standard practice in infrastructure and water services, is to have an Engage Ottawa where there's project scope, schedule, impacts. So it's a one-stop shop where residents can go and see the latest information on any of our construction.
Okay, so just to answer my question, is this something you think a councillor needs to put forward, or is it something that staff would do proactively?
Councillor, if I can provide some clarity on that, no, it's part of our regular process in terms of the work that our communications group does. So I think that answers your question. We don't need a direction.
You don't need a direction. Okay. All right. And then in terms of the concentrations of services, so the Police Services Board will be having a number of conversations about what they're doing in Calgary to make sure there is a concentration of services, so that there's one place that police could bring, or social services staff, or the different community groups could bring residents who need help. So in no way do we imagine this would then prevent any other work that is going on in terms of larger projects and modes of operating for, say, by the Police Services Board and their partners?
Chair, I can answer that. No, there's no risk. We're working on parallel initiatives.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to make sure I don't often use this microphone. You can hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So I do have some questions on this item, mainly around clarity and direction, and what feels like a significant discrepancy between the staff report and one of the consultant reports, and a discrepancy between the current staff report and the previously approved plan for Byward Market. The 2020 Byward Market Public Realm Plan was a clear and detailed plan. What we have before us today feels more general and less detailed, with several departures. My first question is about continuity. In its own words, the 2020 Byward Market Plan described itself as a functional plan and conceptual designs that will guide investment and change in the market for many years to come. The recommendations we have before us today represent a material shift and a far less detailed approach than 2020. I don't think I saw anything in the staff report that explained that shift. Can staff provide some context for how and why that shift occurred, and was that shift based on council direction?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. So in 2021, Council did unanimously endorse the Byward Market Public Realm Plan. In 2023, staff returned to Council for two purposes. One was the creation of the Byward Market District Authority, so the Municipal Services Corporation. And the second was to prioritize which elements of the broader Byward Market Plan would be identified for the shorter term investments. So which ones would be prioritized to move forward on. This report, with regards to the redevelopment and the public realm work, is enacting exactly what Council had directed staff to focus on and prioritize. So specifically, William Street pedestrianization, the Byward Market Square, as well as the 70 Clarence Building and York Street. So those were the projects that were prioritized. And this report is about moving to the next steps from the public realm to getting to a stage where we're ready to implement the work. So from our perspective, it is very much aligned with that detailed plan. It is following up on Council's direction to implement the prioritized projects within that broader plan. That broader plan remains, and as this work proceeds and pending future Council decisions and funding availability, the intention would be to enact the remainder or other elements of the public plan work.
Thank you. Just as a quick follow-up to that, if I understand correctly, you're saying the current framework is an alignment and a narrowing and a focusing on some of those the earlier plan's key directions, but that doesn't mean that this would be a step away from or a reversal on some of the stated intentions, goals, projects, objectives of that 2020 plan?
That's correct. Through the Mayor. So, Councillor, there are two key parts for this report. The first is a revitalization framework. And what that revitalization framework is says that public realm work, so that redevelopment work, sits within a broader context in the Byward Market. So what we're looking to do in that revitalization framework is bring all those elements together so Council can see the comprehensive plan of work for the Byward Market that includes work related to social services and security, that includes work related to obviously the economic development component. So looking at this more holistically, so that's part one, is situating this public realm work in that broader context and showing the work that will ensure its success because they're complementary. And then the second element of the report is the redevelopment, and that is what is moving us forward and enacting Council's direction with regards to that public realm plan approved in 2021.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. My next question, I kind of want to zero in on specific language in the staff report. Because language in planning documents, language can often signal intent. The 2020 Public Realm Plan repeatedly and explicitly used the term pedestrianization, including calling for increased pedestrianization of space. Now that term, pedestrianization, has very clear meaning. It refers to a structural change in street function. In contrast, the current staff report avoids using the term entirely. It does not mention the word pedestrianization once, except in comments by the local councillor. What the staff report relies on instead of pedestrianization is a much more ambiguous phrase, pedestrian-oriented. I think those who are in the industry know that there's a clear distinction between those two terms. Can staff explain why that change in language is made from the 2020 plan to the current framework, and whether that reflects a substantive change in policy intent or implementation ambition, and how council should understand the practical differences between pedestrianization in the original plan and pedestrian-oriented in the report before us today?
Through the mayor. So there's no, from my perspective, there's no intention behind that. The intention related to the Byward Market is that it is a pedestrian-oriented zone or pedestrianized area. So it is not signaling any change or departure from the public realm plan.
I appreciate that. Pedestrianization of a street explicitly means that the street's function will change and that cars will not be on that street. Pedestrian-oriented can mean many things: wider sidewalks, street furniture. Pedestrian-oriented can mean that that street can still function as a vehicle corridor. So can staff confirm that council's previous pedestrianization commitments remain intact and unchanged?
Yes, Councillor, that's correct.
Thank you very much. I'd like to turn to parking and the emphasis placed on parking in the report. The language used by the consultant, Collier's, in their own report is unusually direct. The Collier's report identifies overemphasis on parking as a significant risk, especially as it relates to unsubstantiated parking demand. And that concern is reinforced in their report through their financial and feasibility analysis. How is that warning being reflected in the direction that staff are recommending today?
Through the mayor. So pedestrianization is, as I mentioned, it's a key priority for the report. The next steps in terms of the work around parking and parking access is to undertake additional analysis to ensure that when this comes back to council, the council has all the information to make decisions with regards to parking. We know that it is something that was raised by businesses as a concern. So just to be clear, in terms of 70 clearance, there are two streams of work that we're undertaking. One is to look at the value that retaining that facility as parking would bring to the businesses, to the community, and to residents. And the second is to look at the funding sources for the redevelopment scenario that was put forward in the report, and that council is asked to review and endorse. With regards to 70 clearance in the redevelopment scenario, we intentionally looked at the cost and the feasibility of subterranean parking, which is the direction previously provided by council, and also separated those costs, and we'll come forward with that so that council can make a decision on all of those options. So whether to retain parking, because that is what will bring the most value, or whether to redevelop with or without additional parking.
Thank you. You got a step ahead of me. It's like you're anticipating my next question, but I didn't really get an answer to the question I just posed. What I was saying was, in the Collier's report, they identify that there's an overemphasis on parking in the current plan, and they identify that as a significant risk to the projects, whether on terms of financial viability or feasibility. What I was asking was if the Collier's report identified that overemphasis on parking as a risk, how is that warning being reflected in what staff are recommending? Because in the staff report, I did not see any comment on what Collier identified as risk.
Through the mayor. So, I mean, the availability of parking is something that is a really important question to the business community, and so we are taking a very measured approach and understanding the issue and bringing that information back to council. Within the redevelopment scenario, the intention is to proceed with less parking and more pedestrianized spaces. So we see that in William Street, although as previously mentioned, that is deferred and realigned with other work that will facilitate that. There is also, as I mentioned, the opportunity for council to consider the redevelopment of 70 Clarence with or without subterranean parking. And finally, York Street Plaza will see the removal of the parking spaces there and create a significant interactive plaza for residents and visitors to benefit from.
Thank you. I can appreciate that staff is taking note.
Time, Councillor.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to speak on this important topic. I will probably be a little bit more anecdotal. I appreciate the work that went into this report. I've read the report. I think it is a solid report that you're asking for. I'm also willing to defer to the local councillor as she knows the area better than I do, despite the fact that I had a very delicious lunch at the Lower Town Brewery this weekend after the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It was pretty awesome. I did walk back to my car afterwards, so I did take advantage of pedestrian opportunities in the market. But I'm going to reflect a little bit, I think, what my residents and what my experience is with the Byward Market as a Barrhaven guy. So from time to time, I will stay after work and I'll go down to the market to do something kind of cool. As I said, this weekend, I had the opportunity to go to the pub, have lunch. It was great. And I think that's generally speaking what you will see from my residents. From time to time, they will come down, they will celebrate anniversaries, they will go to a party, they'll do lots of fun things in the market. What I've heard from my residents about their experience in the Byward Market is that they want their market to be safe, and they will come to the market if it is safe. And they will encourage their kids to go to the University of Ottawa if they think it is safe. And they will come down and, you know, maybe have dinner or go to a party or do something a little more frequently if they think it is safe to do so. And broadly speaking, the majority of those people who will come down from Barrhaven are going to drive. So yes, some of them are going to take transit, stay after work, but a lot of them are going to drive down, have dinner, come back. Now that doesn't mean that they need to park, you know, within 20 meters of the place they're going, but they need a place to park. So I am concerned when I hear language about reducing parking access in the Byward Market, because in some ways, I think that's kind of a recipe for if you don't have the parking accessibility for folks that are going to come down, well, then the people aren't going to come down. So it kind of depends on what your mission and your business model is. If we want people to enjoy the Byward Market, we need housing in the downtown, and we need accessibility for people who are not downtown to come downtown, and they need to feel safe. So I've heard a bit about parking. I've heard about concerns about on-street parking. I've heard concerns about pedestrianization and an over-reliance on language that talks about pedestrianization from the Collier's report. My engagement with the business leaders in the downtown has been that they want to see a safe downtown and they want parking in the downtown. So I think those are the two keys to success, myself, kind of straightforward. But I would be very concerned with anything that restricts that further, and I would defer on the rest of the technical issues to the local councillor, who I think has been very engaged in representing the best interests of the businesses and the people that live down in the Byward Market. And I am curious about the financial model. We talked a bit about the subterranean parking option. It would be my understanding that over the lifetime of any form of subterranean parking option, that would be cash flow positive. Because simply put, if you debt finance that subterranean parking option and then you exercise paid parking over the duration of that asset's lifetime, you're going to at some point balance and then become cash flow positive. Is that a fair comment?
Mr. Mayor, yes, that's a fair comment, yes.
So in summary, thank you very much to staff for this report, which I think is a solid plan for an important part of the city. Thank you to the local councillor for your advocacy of your businesses and your residents, and I think for a very common sense perspective on this issue. I think we cannot overlook and over-complexify this problem. This is about safety, it's about access, It's about getting people down there. And anything complicated or ideological that causes speed bumps to that, I think are things that we need to be very careful of. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Lieber.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Councillor Hill, there are more than 5,000 parking spots. I'm sorry, I forget the exact number, 5,100 or something. And I just wonder if staff could comment on whether or not that is used to capacity or not.
Thank you for the question. So there are 5,100 parking stalls, that's correct. And at peak utilization, it's at 85%.
Yeah. So there is a ton of parking. I know when I drive to the market, and I do drive to the market, I don't have problems finding parking in usually a commercial parking lot. So I'm not too worried about the potential loss of some parking on William Street. And William Street is the focus of my questions. I had an opportunity to talk more broadly about the revitalization plan at the FinCo meeting, so I won't revisit that. But I am taking new note, I guess, this morning of the potential to pivot Ottawa, Ontario money away from the pedestrianization of William Street into something else. So I just want to make sure I have my facts straight. In 2021, Council approved, I think unanimously, the Byward Market public realm plan.
That's correct.
And that sought to pedestrianize William Street?
Correct.
And then in 2024, we received $11.8 million from the Ontario government to accomplish that plan?
That's correct.
Okay. And then in 2026, we have heard from somebody that would have negative ramifications. So we have chosen to defer that construction. We will be asking the province to pivot that money into something else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, how would the money be used if it was pivoted?
So we're currently in discussions with the province, but it would be focused on measures that would bring residents and visitors to the market. So that it is the funding that we have is in order to support economic development. So the key piece for Byward Market in downtown is ensuring that people are going to those places to eat and shop and visit. So it would be measures related to that. One example would be temporary public realm and activations in the market is one example. The other aspect that we're focused on really is the safety, and that's so that people, when they do go to the Byward Market, because there are activations and events and nice public spaces, that they feel safe and secure and that they will return to the market.
So if the money were to be pivoted into safety, is that, for example, one of the funding sources that might be used for private security guards?
No, that's not the intention, to fund the private security guards through that.
Okay.
So in conversations with the province, and these are preliminary and they're discussions that are somewhat iterative, so they have priorities. There is recognition that for Ottawa, there are security challenges related to public drug use and an unhoused population. And they do recognize that part of supporting the businesses is to support safety and security, but it really is business focused in terms of what are the supports that can, so it will be discussion with the province around what are the measures that would support safety that the province does feel aligns with the priorities of that funding, which are about economic development.
It seems very ambiguous as opposed to the very clear purpose that the money had when it was made part of the Ottawa deal, that was in response to a very clear direction and plan from City Council.
So we could report back to council with some additional details, but council would be things like enhanced street lighting is an example of something that the province supports security and access to businesses.
Has the province asked us to pivot away from pedestrianization of William as the key use of that money?
No, the province is not.
Okay, so we're talking to them about how else we might use it in response to business assertions.
We're talking to them about how we could reprioritize this funding in recognition that the businesses who are intended to benefit from it are concerned that it is actually going to be detrimental to them. And there is an opportunity to realign this and continue that work at a future date, and to introduce measures that align with the intent of that funding, which is around supporting the economy and the businesses in the downtown. So it's a downtown recovery funding.
Okay, so pedestrianization of William Street potentially flexibly, like was one of the ways in which we were hoping to attract more people to the Byward Market. But in terms of the assertions that pedestrianization would cause some sort of harm to the businesses, we frequently move ahead with city building infrastructure projects, locally important infrastructure business projects, or infrastructure projects, despite the fact that we know it may cause some short-term harm because our eye is on the prize of the long-term benefit. Who has asserted to us, I'm really interested in how this pivot has taken place, who has asserted to us that it would cause economic harm?
So when staff initially went out and consulted, we received mixed feedback with regards to the benefits of the pedestrianization aspects of this work. As we were getting closer and as the world was changing, so introduction of tariffs, very uncertain economic environment, the proportion of businesses that were on the very concerned side grew. And it was a response to the just the confluence of factors. So the economy, the fact that these types of things, and we anticipated that, you're right. There is always concern when it comes to pedestrianization, and then that short-term pain leads to long-term gain. So that's something that we recognized. But there is a particular context today where those compounding impacts were really causing a much higher degree of concern.
So I get that there's concern, and everybody is afraid right now. It's unfortunately very universal. What kind of evidence did they put forward to suggest that their concerns would be actually borne out, and how did we analyze that?
There was a range of different sources of information that was provided, some of which you would have seen at Finance and Corporate Services Committee. So for example, the BIAs had undertaken some survey work. There are business and property owners who had undertaken their own kind of parking survey and analysis with regards to the needs of parking if you're to sustain business. So there's a number of inputs into that. The way staff analyzed that was understanding the growing opposition to this work at this time, and assessing the feasibility of realigning that work to a future year, not moving away from it, just realigning it to another time and moving forward when, hopefully we're in a stronger economic period. And then introducing more temporary and seasonal activations. So we want to see better testing through all seasons of, public realm enhancements, temporary or flexible pedestrianization. We want to see, like I said, true winter activations as well, to continue to build the case for that type of change, and to bring that forward for council to consider, but also for the business community to have a greater, optimism around the impact that pedestrianization will bring and the activations. So proving the concept in a stronger, more compelling way.
Okay, I think we did that in 2021, and we were clear with the direction in which we wanted to take this. And so I am disappointed that what sounds like a very political decision has been made rather than one that has been based on evidence. I take my issues with the methodology behind the parking survey that the William Street merchants may have put forward. I think we can be bolder, we can demonstrate greater leadership, and move ahead sometimes in the face of opposition if we can't demonstrate that opposition is based in some kind of reality. It is disappointing. When it comes time to rebuild William, hopefully with the pedestrianization that council said it wanted in 2021, how will that be paid for? Because this money will have been spent on other things.
Through the mayor. So the next phase of work is looking at all of the redevelopment plans and to develop the detailed funding strategy, which would include potential for things like debt financing, but also looking at partnership, sponsorship opportunities, funding contributions from other levels of government, and coming back with a more detailed plan for council to consider the various options and the funding sources, and to consider the cost of undertaking that work prior to approving the go-ahead.
Okay, so TBD. Thank you. I won't belabor the point. I think we have taken what many felt was a relatively milquetoast plan in the Byward Market public realm plan and made it even more milquetoast. There's no reason not to vote in favor of the plan that's in front of us today. It will accomplish some good things with respect to a redeveloped Byward Market building. I am actually genuinely excited about what York Street might look like after that is undertaken. But we can do better. We can demonstrate more vision. We can be better leaders. Thank you.
Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning to you and colleagues. I just want to start off by clarifying the number of parking garages the City of Ottawa owns. I think it's about 5, 6, 7 in that range. Can staff just confirm the number of parking garages the city owns?
Mr. Mayor, 5.
5, okay. And how many now cap a visitor's time in the lot at 3 hours?
Mr. Mayor, most of our, well, pretty much all of our parking garages right now operate on a gate system. So there's not a time limit per se. I think the only one that we're transitioning right now is the one at 70 Clarence,
right,
to address some of the business needs.
If we've heard from the general manager, there are 5,000 parking spots in the market, public and private. And at the busiest times, utilization is 85%. Why cap the Clarence Street parking garage?
So, Mr. Mayor, this change to making the parking garage basically a 3-hour, similar to on-street, was to mirror basically the on-street scenarios that we have, and also to be able to promote short-term parking. So one of the concerns in the business is, despite the fact that there is a lot of parking availability, it's making sure that we're able to show a turnover of parking, and that's why that switch has been made.
But you've just said there's no problem. There's 5,000 parking spots. We're at 85% utilization at the busiest of times. So why target this parking garage and cap the amount of time people can park there when there are 5,000 parking spots and we're at 85% utilization? Prove to me there's demand to make this change.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think the attraction around 70 Clarence is its location. It's located basically right in the core of the businesses. They want to be able to see a turnover, just like we have our on-street. Basically, we have a 3-hour limit for the on-street. We have a similar scenario for the garage. Now, that being said, if we go back to the consultation that we did when we dealt with the evening and weekend parking changes, there were adjustments that were made to address some of the community needs or the business needs, including in the market, so that 3-hour parking also has a cap in terms of an end time, which means that anybody that goes in after 4:30, for example, that 3-hour will carry them over the 7:30 limit, which means that they can pretty much stay there for the evening. And that was a big concern from a lot of the businesses. They wanted to make sure that if somebody was going out for a night out, that they would have the ability to continue to park. So the modifications that we've made collectively with council's approval helps to be able to maintain that availability for them.
The other garage the city owns just off Dalhousie is about 300 meters away from the Clarence Street garage. Are we going to cap the limit to people parking in this garage, the other garage that serves the Byward Market?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, no.
Okay, so I don't understand the logic behind this decision. I've heard the explanation. Staff's own words clearly indicate there's sufficient parking in the market, that we are not at capacity. I have never been turned away from the market to park, ever. I've always found a spot to park when I've elected to drive, and so I certainly don't support that direction for that particular parking garage. At our very last Transit Commission meeting last month, a colleague brought up concerns about issues within Rideau Station. And for people who choose not to drive, who come down by public transit, their first experience of the market is exiting Rideau Station, which has a long list of challenges that we're all aware of. So my question to the GM, acting GM, is how often are OC Transpo constables proactively patrolling that station? And if they see non-security issues like cleanliness, garbage, etc., do they automatically call that in to have it serviced as soon as possible?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. Our special constable team spent quite a bit of time at Rideau Center Station. We normally have a dedicated staff of 4 individuals who are working through the downtown core, and Rideau Station is one of their primary locations that they spend time there. They address a whole slew of issues, but yes, if there are issues in terms of loitering or cleanliness and those types of things, they have access to our control center where they can report that, and then their control center then takes the lead and communicates that to our RTG, or the maintainer, who then would deploy their staff to that location.
I know the station that serves the Rideau Center is, there are multiple entrances. I'm specifically referring to the station entrance that abuts Rideau Street. So I think your answer would still apply, or?
Yes, we have foot patrols for our special constables, and they'll go to the Sussex entrance as well as the William Street entrance, and they'll actually get right into the station, right on the platform, and basically circulate through the station. Sometimes there's calls for service, they need to go other places, but they are frequently downtown core, Rideau Station being the primary, but obviously Parliament and line stations as well too.
Okay, fair enough, thank you. My last question is more macro in nature, and that's just with respect to the downtown revitalization action plan that the Board of Trade has been charged to lead. I've asked a number of times for, I guess, the timing of the next update that I would assume would be coming to FinCor that will give us particularly updates on net increase in jobs, net increase in residents, which have some very ambitious targets in that regard. When is the next staff report coming to committee on downtown revitalization?
It's approximately a month from now, where we're coming back with a detailed update on the city's contribution to the overall OBOT plan. Actually, it's April 7th to committee.
Okay.
In there, we will be providing those types of updates with regards to progress on those targets.
So for responsibilities that the Board of Trade is leading, will staff be able to, in their report, discuss those matters, or do I have to rely on the Board of Trade to provide updates on their progress?
We can provide a general update with regards to progress on the OBOT plan. The report is primarily focused on those initiatives that are led or heavily supported by city staff. And it brings all of those items together and provides an update in terms of our progress, as well as any gaps as time has passed and situations have changed.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Desroches.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I also want to extend my thanks to the ward councillor for her work to help shepherd this. It is a very challenging file with a number of issues that need to be addressed and a number of opportunities and challenges that need to be balanced. I think it's a big step forward for the market area. As I've said at this place before, we can't rely on the nostalgia of many, many decades ago. When it comes to the modern context, we are very actively building 15-minute communities right across the city. We are encouraging residents to shop and to work and play in their own communities, whether that be Barrhaven, Canada, or Riverside South, or Findlay Creek. So I agree with Councillor Hill that visits to the market will not be like they once were over 40 years ago, right? People are going to be shopping at many different places in the city. We're encouraging that. And in fact, we've got a number of BIAs that are working very, very ambitiously to encourage people to stay in their communities. So I have said to the market in previous meetings, you really need to modernize your strategy for being sustainable. And I agree today is not the day to quabble on the number of parking spots, but it's also not the day to kind of de-emphasize the emphasis on it or the importance. There will be people who choose to come to the market by vehicle, and I hope they do. I think we have the experience of Spark Street where we look at that and say, that's not working, and it hasn't worked, and there's been oodles of money that has been deployed to that area to try and generate some activity there. And so I think it's fair that people have some reticence and some concerns when we do what we've seen on Spark Street. I also sat here when we brought some parking changes to the market, and I heard from the business leaders saying, some of them, that they would accept some of these parking restrictions if they knew that some of the revenue was going back to the community. And presently, despite what people think, when someone gets a parking infraction, it doesn't go to a cash grab or our consolidated revenue. It goes towards restricted parking activities, a fund that is reserved for restricting parking activities. So my question is, will we be using that fund to support the parking strategy of this initiative? Years ago, many years ago, it would have involved possibly building other parking garages, but that doesn't seem to be the trend now. But I think it's a fair question for the business to ask, if you're issuing tickets, where is that money going that is helping with the parking challenges that exist?
So, Mr. Mayor, I can start with the question and the answer, and then my colleagues can step in. So your question, I'm assuming your question is more related to the parking permits that are, or the pays that people are parking in, not necessarily the infractions.
The infractions, and more just a part of this. My question is this strategy, the funding, are you able to take advantage of that parking fund, the reserve? That's my question.
So I'll start on the permit side, and then I'll transfer it over to GM Pearl for the infraction side. So on the parking permit piece, based on the municipal act, basically all of the investments that are recovered or the funds that are recovered from that activity needs to be reinvested in parking. So so to your question, basically in terms of when we look at the future state of the Byward garage, any investments that are related to the parking component, we would be able to access that fund.
Thank you for that answer. I think the business community will appreciate that, since that's what they said when we dealt with the restrictions. And I'll just close by saying, again, I agree with Councillor Hill that safety is first and foremost for many people that I speak to. I'm pleased that our Chief of Police is undertaking plans to come up with a strategy for policing the downtown. I think that is going to be very important, both for dealing with criminality and giving confidence to people that they're safe when they're there, the visibility of the police in our community. And at the same time, having a sustainable strategy so that we're not taking police from one part of the city to respond to issues in this part of the city. So I think that's an important piece, and I'm going to be watching that strategy very closely as it moves forward with the Police Services Board. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great meeting so far today. Complexify and oodles are real words, by the way. I checked them. It's great to see this in front of us, and I want to thank Councillor Plante for her great work on this. She's really taken the bull by the horns on this, because every time we have a convention in town or something that's happened, the first thing I hear from people is things have changed. It's not quite the same anymore. And, that also trickles down to where I've seen stand-up comedians mocking our own city. I haven't seen this in years, but the last couple of years, it's definitely something that people are noticing. I think, we can hurry up and wait, or we can deal with it now. And I really like that approach. Real business focused, security focused, and again, looking at the ability to say, we also live in reality. I'm not sure how many people have driven a 5-ton truck. I have, when I was younger. And to get those things down and deliver goods into the market, you need a flexible structure. So I really like the word bollard. I think that's a good word. And it deals with reality. And the Byward Market District Authority is doing a great job now, working with you directly, Councillor, on forming a way to say, hey, let's get all those vehicles in and out and make it safer for people and do it during certain hours. And let's change how we do things. So it's not always trucks parked a block away trying to unload goods. And, it's about trying to create that experience. And I think we saw that experience downtown this weekend. I'm still getting messages about how great, and thank you to all my colleagues that were able to attend the St. Patrick's Day Parade. That's the kind of vibrancy and pull to the market that we need. That was a lot of people. They weren't all from downtown. They were loading their cars with kids, and they were driving in and parking downtown to take part in the ceremony downtown. And of course, we want to see that, 52 weeks a year, every weekend, maybe Saturday, Sunday, double that up, instead of just those short segments where we're creating those short windows. Because we're going to have a lot of challenges clearly ahead. We hear the cab drivers are very concerned about the cost of fuel. Well, guess what? Cost of fuel also goes down to the products and goods that we have. So these businesses, the restaurants and the market, are going to need us to work with them more than ever. When it comes to the parking, I know a lot of people. I don't know how they expect everyone just to walk around all year. Certainly, there's active transportation as part of the whole project, but reality also says there's convenience, and we all are victims of that as well. If I was to say, hey, we have reserved parking spots at City Council, we all drive. And we just say, yeah, we're taking those reserved convenience spots out for us. Well, City Hall would burn down. So, there is that element of a 3-hour parking window that's convenient, that will really satisfy families and seniors down in the market. Could that change in the future? Maybe. But at this point, there isn't the money, the infrastructure, and frankly, the world's in a weird state right now. We're building a complete underground parking system. May not be achievable in the short term, but maybe in the future. So again, I just wanted to say a big thanks to the councillor, really taking the bull by the horns on this one. People are already starting to feel safer. You see horses around, you see police around, and now we're seeing more action in the stations. So kudos. I'll be supporting everything brought forward by the ward councillor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carr?
Thank you very much. I also had the opportunity after the parade this weekend to have lunch at Lower Town Brewery and then to do a bit of shopping. I bought this amazing purse that I can actually take phone calls on. I can't wait to show you all. While I was down there, I did actually have the opportunity to talk to some merchants as I was talking and as I was shopping. And a lot of what I heard is very similar to what Councillor Brockington mentioned, is that the safety of the OC Transpo station at Rideau. And I heard about violence, I heard about garbage, I heard about crime, I heard about buskers, unauthorized buskers, religious individuals, that and intimidation. And I heard the GM's point, I heard Troy's point on how it's patrolled, but in the context of this plan on Byward Market, how much work has been done with OC Transpo in order to increase use of transit to the Byward Market as we're talking about revitalization? And I ask that because last year when the BMDA presented to us, I asked the question, how much work have you done with OC Transpo? And they said, well, we haven't really, but we'd like to do more. And so I'd be interested in understanding from Troy how his group has been involved in these discussions about revitalization of the Byward?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we've been involved with the strategic initiatives team in working through this plan, identifying some of the short-term actions that we could take to improve that sense and feeling of safety and security in the station. We work closely with my colleague Claire Fierre's group as well too, in terms of the support mechanisms to help manage the homeless population. So, we've been actively engaged and involved, and, some of our action items in terms of station cleanliness and some actions that we want to take with regards to applying the CEPTED principles of crime prevention through environmental design, are all aspects that we want to link into the revitalization program. We've heard from the councillors, we've heard from businesses and residents, and there's some actions that we can take, and we're actively moving on those now. But we've definitely been engaged and involved, and part of that has been through the SolGen funding that we've received. We were able to increase the number of special constables that we have, and that's been a great benefit to increase our visibility in the stations, particularly in the downtown core.
Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate that. I'm also hoping that we have some discussions before we make decisions on the parking about how we can better increase the transit use to the Byward Market. Like when I think about, I go to Blues Fest every year. Everybody takes the bus there if they don't ride their bike. When we have Canada Day, everybody takes the bus when there really are no other options. People will go on transit, and I really think that needs to be part of this discussion on how that's going to be improved and promoted. And it's a safety question, but it's also a question of frequency, availability, convenience as well. And I think it's difficult to have a discussion about cutting out 22 parking spaces here or there when what we really need to do as a city is talk about how we should be driving people to the core. And recently there was an event, I'm going to get the name wrong, Barbagazzi or something, at Flying Snowmobiles. And I didn't see any promotion of how to get there by transit. Maybe I missed it, but there needs to be a better tie-in overall as we continue down this path of how we can improve transit and increase that to the tourist areas. But I'll be supporting the plan, and thanks to the Ward Council for all of her continued advocacy on this file.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the Ward Councillor for her work on this. It's a balance of appealing to the people that actually live there in the market, and also to the tourism, which can be local tourism, Barrhaven or Orleans, but it's also worldwide. And I don't think a lot of them are driving. I think a lot of them are taking transit or walking from their hotels. And I'll chime in about the Rideau transit station, that it needs to feel very secure, because that is a key link if we're going to attract people that way, especially as we extend with stage 2. Stage 2 is coming, and we'll be able to attract more people. And I think that's a key component. So I think that needs to be worked on. I appreciate the comments already from Troy Charter on that. In the briefing that I received, and thank you for the briefing, I asked about cycle infrastructure, and it was not really emphasized very much. There is cycle parking, secure cycle parking, which is very helpful, but I think that helps a lot too. That this is something that we should consider more. I'm not saying it's a replacement for car parking, but I think that the comments, I agree with most of them about that we need the pedestrianization, that there's still plenty of parking spots, and I really don't think we're going to harm the people who need to drive there. But let's encourage those who want to cycle there, because we even have Rent-A-Bike right just at the corner there. So can we do more to encourage cyclists? So that's a question.
Through the mayor. So since that briefing, that's something that we are looking at. So you're correct. The redevelopment concept for 70 Clarence does include the secure bike parking facilities. Currently the York Street Plaza accommodates cycling as well, and then we're working with our colleagues in planning to look at what else can be done to support cycling and full access to the Byward Market beyond like all modes.
Yeah, that needs safe routes, cycle lanes, et cetera. So I think that's really important. So anyway, thanks again to the local councillor and for the work. We do need to have this revitalized. We know the history. This is where Ottawa started, and we need to bring it back to its glory. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to get a bit caught up on what I'm less familiar with in this conversation. So to go back to this deferment of the William Street project and a decision to pivot to other priorities for the 10 million, when was the decision to defer this part of the project communicated first to committee and council?
Through the mayor, so it's being communicated through this report and the briefings leading up to this report.
And who gets to determine what the new ask is for the money that had been allocated by the province to the William Street piece?
Through the mayor. I guess on that one, staff's recommendation is that it aligns with the short-term actions that are put forward in the plan. So, for example, there is a plan that relates to the cleanliness, security, beautification of the Rideau station, LRT station. So recognizing that that's an important kind of gateway or point of entry into the market. So that would be one of the priorities, but they're really aligned with the Byward Market short-term actions, and then other priorities that align with the funding, the intent of the funding, so the economic development support, so looking at the broader downtown area. And as mentioned previously, we would bring that back to council for information.
So at that time, you will have it come back by way of memo, is what you said?
That was the intent, yes.
And so would councillors have an opportunity to lift that item for information and move any motions on it at that time?
So the intention was to provide an information memo. These are discussions where the province does provide very specific parameters around what they're willing to fund. And so the discussions are aligned with what is in the Byward Market report, and then the priorities around supporting economic development, so access and spending in stores and restaurants, et cetera.
So is this a typical process? Are there other examples where we would see a change order of this magnitude on a grant received being done without any committee or councillor opportunities for motions?
So I'm not aware of any, and kind of looking around the table, I'm not seeing. So I think that this is a quite a unique situation. Yeah, so we're not aware of any situations. I think the context is unique, and the path forward provides some transparency with regards to how the funding would be used. The report provides transparency with regards to the types of projects that are prioritized. So if you look at the action plan, you'll see all the short-term initiatives. Those are initiatives that are being prioritized as long as they align with the funding intent and the province does accept it.
Okay, I mean, I guess I take a little bit of umbrage with the concept of it being a unique experience. Maybe it's a unique opportunity in the sense that we have a grant applied to this specific area, but certainly not to speak on behalf of any of my colleagues, but through the LRT construction stage west, there's certainly been some very deep disruptions and business closures for the sake of a city building project that we all believe is essential for the vision of Ottawa's, as a world-class city. So I guess I struggle a little bit in this case to understand how we sort of shift our locus of control for decision making from what should, as far as I'm concerned, be a committee and council decision, especially in dealing with other levels of government, to outsource to a process that feels generally misunderstood at this table. I also would like to offer some comments when it comes to the idea of security and whether or not we might be able to avoid using some of this 10 million for further security investments. I don't consider it ideological. I think it's an opportunity to have a bit more direct undesignated funds in this specific instance versus some of those other funds that have been very specifically on security, like those that come through the Solicitor General, those that come to Ottawa Police Service, those that come to the parliamentary precinct, and so on. Like, those are direct funds for security measures. We've made investments with constables, for example, with OC Transpo and other aspects. If we have an opportunity to use this fund from the provincial government in a broader application of what is economic development and what advantages we could see, we should be applying it in unique and innovative ways that are exclusive to some of the other ways that we receive funds from other levels of government, because we might not have that flexibility in other funds that we see. So I just offer that as comment when it comes to using grant money. And then generally, are there any sunk costs already to date on the William Street pedestrianization plan that we would lose as a result of this pivot? And do we have any accounting for those?
So there is 1.8 million from the Ottawa Ontario agreement that was invested in the detailed design for William Street. That work is complete. And it was an earlier commitment as part of that agreement.
Okay, very good. So I guess generally my comments are restricted to sort of the governance aspect of some of these decision-making points. I'm a little uncomfortable with the way that some of this has come forward. I want to leave my comments there, otherwise I'll be supporting the plan. But I do think, we have an opportunity as committee and council members to weigh these decisions against other term of council priorities and master plans that we have voted on at previous meetings. And some of them have been very ambitious and bold. And we have great pieces, for example, in the transportation master plan that we should be very excited about. And so to have some of these decisions be made kind of in a parallel stream feels deeply uncomfortable to me. I don't see the William Street businesses necessarily having the breadth and depth of knowledge that committee and councillors would have when it comes to the larger strategic vision for the city, nor should they. I mean, I appreciate their position immensely, but I also appreciate ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dudas.
I actually wanted to recognize that my colleagues have brought up some very valid points, and this has been a wonderful and insightful conversation. I actually also wanted to add my thanks to the ward councillor for all the work she's done and collaborating with me on my need for boulevards. I also wanted to thank the mayor. Last term of council, when we actually started down this path of, public realm planning for the Byward Market, I don't know if I'm speaking for just myself or my other colleagues, but I didn't know if this plan would be shelved, if we would ever see it progress. So I actually wanted to have a shout out for the mayor for championing the continued ongoing progress of this particular initiative, because there's no denying that the market is the heart of our city. And once again, while we often focus on visitors to our city and them wanting to be there, or businesses or people living there, I, for one, go there constantly with my family. I was there at Barbagazi, and I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, but I was there with my kids and my family. I have attended Mass at the Basilica with my son. I go down and I get kielbasa from the Polish butcher. I had Korean barbecue there on a date night with my hubby. I'm there quite a lot. My daughter's also there transiting through Rideau Station. So I've heard the good, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And this is the time for us to progress and invest in the Byward Market. It's a phenomenal asset to our city. It is time to move forward with it. And I do have a lot of hope for transit. And to Councillor Carr's point, we can be doing more to promote transit. I think that will come. when we see the extension to the east and to the west, and then improvements to bus service and to the south end, people will start to see it as convenient to use transit. Until we have convenience on transit, people aren't going to access it. They're going to take the car. But I am hopeful that with extensions, particularly to the east end, more people will choose to use it to get downtown. So I am very emboldened by this plan. I think that it is maybe not as ambitious as some people might want, but I do think it puts into respect the needs of businesses, residents in the core, communities adjacent, the needs for safety, the needs for access to parking and transit, but also folks like who live in Orleans who want to go there, like my family, and enjoy it and really immerse themselves in the experience. So I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say I'm so pleased to see this progressing forward and to thank all those involved.
Thank you, Councillor Dudas. Just before Conseiller Plante wraps up on this, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions and make a few comments myself. So first of all, with regard to William Street, this is not a change in the plan or the vision, it's a change in the timeline, correct? The idea is that pedestrianization of William Street is still planned to go ahead, but the work would be done in line with the work that is done on the Byward Market building on 55 Byward Market. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's not a change in vision, not a change in plan, just a change in timetable.
Correct.
Okay. And when we say there's 5,100 parking spots in the Byward Market, that's the entire Byward Market, right? It's not one small part of the Byward Market.
That's the broader area of the Byward Market, public and private. Some of those are in the core and some of them within a short walking distance.
Yeah. So I want to make the point, colleagues, that, you know, there's a couple of red herrings with the numbers that are being thrown around here. Like 5,100 parking spots is covering a very wide area. I used to own a retail business. I don't know how many of you ever owned a retail business, but I can tell you my employees and my customers wanted to be able to park close. The ones that drove wanted to be able to park close to the business. They didn't want to park a kilometer away and then walk the rest of the way to the shop. I don't know about you, but when I go and buy my groceries, I don't park a kilometer away from the grocery store and then walk to the grocery store. I park as close to the door as I can. So proximity matters with these parking spots. So for example, for a business on William Street, where the 22 spots that we're discussing today are located, not all 5,100 parking spots in the Byward Market are within 100 or 200 meters of their store. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay, so proximity matters when it comes to parking, and in terms of capacity, we're saying the parking lots are at 85% capacity. Our objective with this plan and the work of the Byward Market District Authority is to attract more people to the Byward Market, not less. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And when it comes to something like public transit, for example, I see our trains and buses driving around the city. They're not all operating at 100% capacity or 85% capacity. Some of them may be operating at 50% capacity or 25% capacity. We don't say, oh, I guess we don't need to invest in public transit anymore. Like if we hit 85% of capacity, every single spot, 85% of the spots on public transit were taken up every day in our city, we wouldn't say, well, we're done on public transit. We don't need to invest anymore. I think we want to provide options to the people who are visiting the Byward Market. We want to give them a reason to walk and cycle there. We want to give them a reason to use public transit. We want to allow them to drive if they so choose. And if they're driving, they're going to want to park close to the business or restaurant that they are frequenting. They are not going to want to park a kilometer away and then walk the rest of the way. So I think it's not the total number of spots, but the proximity. And we're talking about 22 spots that those business owners consider important to them. And we're talking about changing the timetable to align with the construction that would be happening. And we're also talking about lots of other public improvements here, such as the York Street Plaza, which is going to lead to a lot more open space for pedestrians in the market and a lot more opportunities for events to take place. We're also talking about closing William Street from time to time to have events. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, the plan that the councillor supports. And I want to thank Conseiller Plante for going with me and visiting a number of different businesses in the Byward Market to talk to them about a wide range of issues, including parking. We had a very a good series of discussions with business owners in those areas. So let's be supportive of all the options that people use to go to the Byward Market. Let's create capacity and maintain capacity instead of thwarting some areas and making it harder for people to. It's hard enough for some of these businesses to do what they're doing as it is. Let's not make it harder for them. So let's support this plan. It's a very exciting plan. It's a great vision for the Byward Market. There's a number of different things here that the community is excited about. I've heard very good feedback about it in the last couple of weeks since it was introduced, and I know the councillor has as well. So I'll finish there, and I'll let Councillor Plante wrap up.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, before I begin, Councillor Leeper had just discussed with me an amendment. Did staff get that amendment or no?
We just received it, Mr. Mayor.
Do you mind posting it?
It might take just a moment.
Sure. Okay. So I'll just do my wrap-up speech and then we can discuss the amendment. Colleagues, the Byward Revitalization Framework and Coordinated Redevelopment Program is a welcome and long overdue effort to focus attention on one of the most important places in our city. The Byward Market holds a special meaning for me personally. It's the first place I found a job when I moved to Ottawa in 2004. Shout out to the staff at the cabin. And many residents, workers, and business owners, it's not just a destination, it's home, it's their livelihood, and it's part of Ottawa and Canada's identity. Generation of communities know what a special place this is. The Irish, the Francophone, the Indigenous, and of course the blue collar and service workers who have built their lives and livelihood here. But over the years, that specialness has been overshadowed by headlines of crime, empty storefronts, and the redlining of social services into Ward 12. At the same time, we've had no shortage of plans, working groups, task force, advisory committees, roadmaps, strategic alignments. Too often, the people leading these discussions do not live in the neighborhood, which can unintentionally insulate them from the day-to-day realities their decisions create. Because of this, one of my motions is to look at the governance structure around the Byward and to ensure monthly updates so that I can properly inform my residents about what's happening in the neighborhood. We've become very good at meeting to talk about the market. We've been less good at implementing solutions. And colleagues, let me be clear about the goal here. We want the Byward Market to be snatched, clean, safe, busy, beautiful, a place where residents are proud to live, businesses can thrive, and visitors immediately understand why the district is the heart of our city. I want to begin by acknowledging the work staff have put into the report. I want to particularly thank Debbie Stewart and her full team at the Strategic Initiatives who work not only on the report itself, but on my 11 million amendments I'm bringing forward today. The report recognizes something important. Revitalization cannot occur in isolation from housing, mental health, addiction, public safety, and economic vitality. These issues are interconnected, and the report reflects that reality. But after 73 pages, residents, families, and businesses deserve clarity about what will actually change in the near term. That is why I'm bringing forward a few amendments that I believe will strengthen the plan and reflect the reality of the Byward Market. First, I'm asking staff to consider the creation of extended hours daycare. The Byward Market is one of the few places in Ottawa where people work evening, nights, and weekends. Restaurant workers, hospitality staff, cleaners, security staff, delivery workers, musicians, service workers keep this district alive and well outside of typical 9-to-5 workday. If we want the market to thrive, we also have to support workers who make it function. Second, I'm asking staff to consider a plan for better distribute low barrier services across the city. Je vais être très clair, il ne s'agit pas d'enlever des services ou de déplacer les personnes.
We don't want to remove services or displace the vulnerable people elsewhere. We want to ensure support, dignity, but we have to talk about the capacity of hosting these people. We have a disproportionate part of these people. The residents don't always have the resources to have their voice heard. They live with the reality that these decisions create. A more balanced approach by the city would allow people to access these services closer to their community and would reduce the pressure on one single ward and organizations that offer these services. It would be more equitable for everybody.
And support by flexible bollards. The feedback on consultation is clear. People want more spaces to walk, gather, and experience the market, and businesses want flexibility between increased pedestrianization and access to parking. This is a practical approach. It gives businesses predictability, creates attractions for residents and visitors, and builds on the success we've seen with events like Canada Day and the recent Babergazi Street closures. If we are serious about pedestrianization, we cannot rely on people to manually block streets every week. This is inefficient and unsustainable. Retractable bollards allow the city to manage closures safely and consistently while allowing for deliveries, accessibility, and emergency vehicles. First, and also, I would like to consider a 24/7 access to public washrooms in the market. I understand there's washrooms in the main market building, and that one is planned for 70 Clarence as part of the destination, but neither are available 24/7, which, if you've ever had me as a server back in the day, you will know that the Byward Market serves a lot of drinks in the evening, long after those washrooms close. But if we are planning for increased pedestrian traffic and festivals and activity, we need publicly accessible washrooms. And finally, we need to remember something important about the Byward Market. The neighborhood is one of the city's strongest economic engines. The taxes here generated keep the lights on in community centers and fill potholes across Ottawa. That's fine, that's how cities work, but it also means we have a responsibility to reinvest in the market and treat it with the urgency it deserves. The Byward Market is often the first place visitors experience when they come to Ottawa. It's our historic market, our front door, and a defining part of our city. For too long, people in the neighborhood have felt like that line from Arcade Fighter. I keep waiting till I don't know when, but I'm sure it's going to happen then. Well, colleagues, we shouldn't have to wait anymore. The Byward Market is not a problem to manage. It's an asset to invest in, and it's time we start treating it that way. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci.
Can we see the motion? Sorry.
Yeah, so this, I understand this to be a motion you're introducing, seconded by Councillor Leeper, is that right? Yeah, yep. Okay. So you're almost out of time, but it's a short motion.
Thank you to Councillor Reaper. Whereas a decision on how to reallocate funding provided by the province for pedestrianization of William Street has not been finalized by city staff who are in discussions with the province, therefore be it resolved that city's preferred request for reallocation of provincial funding be subject to approval by council by means of a report to Finance and Corporate Services Committee. Did I get that right? Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you. Since this is a new motion, councillors may speak to the motion if they choose to. Okay, so Councillor Leeper? Okay. I don't have any strong objection to the motion if we're reallocating the money and it comes back to committee for review and approval. Councillor Curry?
Just is there staff comment on timing or what that means, what that logistically means?
Thank you for the question. So this funding, there are some considerations. I have no issue with coming back to Finance and Corporate Services Committee. However, there are some considerations. This funding is to be spent by March 31st, 2027. So we have a very short period of time. And staff intent was really to bring forward initiatives that council had already approved, including those that are short-term actions in this report that council is reviewing today. That would be the key consideration is timing and that the money needs to be out the door and spent by March 2027.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just, if I can provide a little bit of a comment. My only concern is we do provide regular updates to committee and council on the Ontario-Ottawa deal. These are negotiations with the province, obviously, so we would be here to update you on where it goes. Seeking final approval could be outside of the realm of the spirit of the Ontario-Ottawa deal, because the money was earmarked for a certain thing, and through my colleagues' discussions, we're still trying to use that funding for the same purpose. So that's negotiated with the province. So there might be a little bit of a delay in terms of seeking approval on the final rediversion if we got to come back to committee. That's my only concern.
So, Mr. Mayor, I remember this at the school board when we had a similar thing where the province gave us money and then councillors tried to change the money and it caused a lot of problems. You know, so I just wonder what the intent is in the end, if that is a problem. I mean, you're hearing from our CFO, so I just want to make sure we're 100% clear on what the implications are.
So just to pick up on that before we go to Councillor Leeper, just any changes would have to be approved by the province, right? But my recollection from the negotiations, which I was involved in, of the Ontario-Ottawa deal, is that they allocated a certain amount of money to downtown Byward Market revitalization broadly, and it was our suggestion, and they agreed to it, that we use it for this specific purpose. But it was not that they allocated the money to us specifically for this purpose, and if it was not going to go to this purpose, they weren't going to give us the money. They wanted it to go to downtown Byward Market revitalization broadly, and we chose to apply it here. And we, in theory, would still use it for William Street if there were not the deadline of March 31st, 2027 to use the money. But effectively, and I'm asking the treasurer this, if we were to reallocate the money to other downtown Byward Market revitalization efforts, that would free up money that we would have spent on our own otherwise, and then we would spend that freed up money on the William Street project in the future after the deadline, right?
Mr. Mayor, yes, correct.
Okay. So then the net result would be the same. Instead of us having spent some money on some other improvements and the province's money going to William Street, the province's money goes to those other improvements and our money goes to William Street, and the net effect for the province and the net effect for Ottawa is the same.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm not sure we're far apart on the process here. The province, we asked the province for $11 million to revitalize William Street. We've changed our minds, appropriately or not. There are that money is clearly in the vein of Byward Market revitalization, downtown revitalization, but the list of projects to which that money could be applied, if we are asking them to put it towards something else, is presumably very large. I'm just starting to write the list right now. Do we use that to accelerate the building of public washrooms? Do we put bollards in places? What kind of public realm improvements can we make? What kind of security lighting? Before city staff, and I'm very cognizant of Councillor Johnson's caution with respect to the preeminence of this council in determining our directions when we are talking to the province about how to use funding that they might give us. I would like city staff to come back to us and say, here is what we intend to ask them for, and to have council weigh in on that. I don't anticipate that that would probably be a very fractious meeting, but I think the principle of the thing is extremely important. And I would be willing to amend the motion as well. I'm sorry, I would ask Councillor Plant if she'd be willing to amend the motion such that this would need to be reported directly back to council rather than going through the FEDCO or FINCO process.
Okay. You could say either or as well. Okay. Yeah, why don't we do that?
So either or.
Yeah,
if
let's say either or. But I guess the element that I want to make sure is clear if we are adopting this motion is that this is not a blank check from the provincial government that can be applied to anything we want. They would have to approve, to be clear, whatever we decided to apply it to. So there would have to be a recognition that if it came back to committee or council, that the province would be agreeing to whatever we decide to apply it to.
Yeah, I assume that when they come back to us, staff, that they have a good idea that the province is willing to do it, and they have a good idea that council is willing to do it as well, and hopefully it's not a particularly controversial discussion.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, yes, agree. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So staff have accepted the two directions, so we will vote on the motions. Starting with the motion on daycare spaces. Is that carried?
Carried.
The motion on public washrooms, is that carried?
Percent.
The motion on service concentration, is that carried?
Carried.
The motion on the steering committee, is that carried?
Carried.
The motion on pedestrianization and bollards, pedestrianization and bollards, is that carried?
Carried.
And the most recent motion that was just introduced on reporting back to committee or council, is that carried?
Carried.
Point of privilege, maybe order. I'm not sure. I don't know if the clerk picked up on my dissent on 12.3D.
You dissented on which one?
On the 12.3D on public washrooms. I don't know if the
on the public washroom.
Yeah.
Noted.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then the item is amended. Is that carried? Okay, thank you, everyone. We are going to, as you know, skip over the in-camera item and come back at 2 o'clock for that discussion. So we'll move to item 17 on the agenda, disposition of items approved by committees under delegated authority. Is that received? Motion to adopt reports, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Mayor. That the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee Report 33 Community Services Committee Report 21, Finance and Corporate Services Committee Report 34, Planning and Housing Committee Report 61, Public Works and Infrastructure Committee Report 24, and the report from the City Clerk entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of February 25, 2026 be received and adopted as amended.
Is that carried? Motions of which notice has previously been given. Black Maternal Health and Reproductive Justice Month. Councillor King.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. And if you just permit me just a few comments, I'm pleased to bring forward this motion with Councillor Troster formally establishing April as Black Maternal Health and Reproductive Justice Month. For the City of Ottawa, Council has already recognized this month in both 2024 and 2025. This motion simply formalizes that commitment going forward, ensuring consistency, continuity, and long-term visibility for an issue that continues to affect the health and well-being of Black families in our city. This work is being led locally by the Canadian Women of Color Leadership Network, a Black-led Ottawa-based organization working at the intersection of wellness, leadership, and community partnership. They have spent years bringing together community members, practitioners, and system partners to address gaps in maternal health and culturally responsive care for Black women, birthing, and families. Black maternal health inequities are real, persistent, and shaped by systemic barriers, gaps in culturally responsive care, and the absence of consistent race-based data. This motion sits with the city's role in public health promotion, equity, and community partnership. It does not direct healthcare delivery or introduce new funding requirements. It recognizes the value of community-led approaches that complement existing health systems and strengthen trust and access. Formalizing this designation aligns with Council's commitments to equity and anti-racism and reflects growing municipal leadership across Ontario on this issue. I'm proud to bring this forward, and I respectfully ask for Council's support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor King. Is that carried?
Carried.
Next is the commemorative naming for John Curry and John Bramell. Councillor Gower, I don't know if you wanted to speak to it or you're happy to just...
Yeah, not really any additional comments, although I would like to thank all the community members who have written in support of this commemoration over the past couple of weeks. It's been really heartwarming to hear all of the fond memories and congratulations for the service of these two gentlemen who unfortunately are no longer with us. And thank you, Council, for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Gower. Is that carried? Use of the Moonies Bay parking lot. Councillor Brockington, did you want to speak to it?
I'm happy to answer questions, Mayor. I think it's a fairly straightforward motion.
Okay, is that carried? Honoring Ottawa's Black history. Colleagues, as you know, I introduced this motion. I think it's only the second motion I've introduced myself in the entire term. I do want to note the presence of June Gervin with us today. Great to see you, looking stylish as always. Yeah, pleasure to work with you on this. So I am looking forward to your support of this, what I think is a great way to create a legacy from the 40th anniversary of Black History Ottawa. Councillor Dudas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was very proud to second this motion, which reflects not only the depth of Ottawa's Black history, but the strength, the leadership, and cultural vibrancy that continues to shape our city. And as we mark the 40th anniversary of Black History Ottawa, it's fitting that we recommit ourselves to the values of recognition, justice, and human rights. Declaring Ottawa as a human rights community is not just symbolic, it signals our responsibility as a municipality to uphold equality and freedom from discrimination in everything that we do. And I'm particularly pleased that this motion includes a decades-long initiative to honor 40 distinguished residents whose contributions have truly shaped our city. The first names being put forward today represent excellence across generations. They're leaders in civil rights and education, diplomacy, literature, journalism, and community advocacy. And among these remarkable individuals is someone that I have the privilege of serving with every day, Councillor Ralston King. I want to acknowledge him as not only Ottawa's first Black City Councillor, but as a colleague whose leadership and integrity and dedication have strengthened this council and this city. He would be the first to say that this recognition is about the community and not about him, and he's right. Today's motion honors a broad and diverse legacy, but it's also important to say respectfully and plainly that Councillor King has changed this institution for the better. His work on equality, on anti-racism, and on ensuring residents feel heard and respected has made Ottawa a more just and inclusive place. To all the honorees, those named today, and the many who will follow, you have contributed immeasurably to Ottawa's civic, cultural, and human rights landscape. We thank you for everything you have done, and we commit to ensuring that your stories, achievements, and leadership become a permanent part of our city's collective memory. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very well said, Councillor Dudas. Thank you. Councillor King, I don't know if technically you're in a conflict of interest here because you're named in the motion. I'm just teasing. I'm very glad that we included your name there, and want to thank you for all your collaboration and leadership on some very important issues that we've worked on together. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. And I know that this is not a pecuniary interest, so I'll move forward from there. But Your Worship and colleagues, the motion before us today is a statement about who we are as a city, whose stories we tell, and what kind of community we are committed to building. I want to really speak in strong support of this motion and thank you as well as Councillor Dudas for moving it. Ottawa's Black community has been part of the city for over 2 centuries, from Mr. London Oxford in 1800 to the first Black family in Bytown in 1844. These were builders of this city, and generation after generation, that legacy of contribution has continued. This motion also marks 40 years of Black History Ottawa, an incredible organization that for 4 decades has been educating residents, preserving stories, and ensuring Black Ottawans are recognized and valued. To their board and volunteers, this city owes you a tremendous debt of gratitude. In 2018, Ottawa aligned with the UN International Decade for People of African Descent. In 2022, we adopted our first anti-racism strategy. Today's motion builds on both. Proclaiming Ottawa a human rights community is a declaration that inclusion is not an aspiration here, it is our standard. The heart of this motion is a commitment to commemorate 40 distinguished Black Ottawa residents over the next decade. This matters because representation is not only about who holds office, it's about whose names are spoken in places of honor, whose contributions are woven into the civic memory of this city. The honorees being recognized today are not just Ottawa stories, they are Canadian stories, and they belong in the full telling of who we are. I ask every member of this council to support this motion as a promise to every Black resident that their history is Ottawa's history. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mayor. I will certainly be supporting the motion before us, and I was quite moved to hear Councillor Dudas's comments today. Thank you, Councillor. And she is right. We are better off with Councillor King around this table. And if you look at Councillor King's many accomplishments during a short tenure, he has made this city and this council much better. So I'm glad to see his name on this list as well. My question is more procedural in nature. How will the 40 distinguished Black Ottawa residents who are identified be prioritized? When we have naming opportunities that come up, how, with maybe other names as well in the mix, how will this process work?
Are you going to provide an answer? Go ahead.
So it's somewhat of a procedural question, somewhat of a question to staff in terms of next steps. My understanding is staff would be reviewing this and determining what opportunities would be available to commemorate these individuals. There's a variety of different types of commemoration and recognition programs in the city, and depending on the path forward, that may or may not trigger bringing something back or going through one of the existing processes. Mr. Chenier might want to add something with respect to physical commemorations.
Mr. Mayor, in preliminary discussions on this, staff have thought that there are at least 3 existing commemoration programs that we could channel these through. There may be other ideas because this is perhaps a bit outside of that, but the first option would be to look at the commemorative naming, commemorative benches, trees, those kinds of programs. And then if there are ideas to do other things, we can certainly look at that as a one-off or as a new concept that we want to implement.
I appreciate that. Certainly the commemorative naming process I'm most familiar with is community-driven, where a member of the community who wants to name a room in a community center library has a process to go through. I would want to make sure that the distinguished people here receive a distinguished commemoration. And I'm not against a tree or a bench, but for someone who has significantly made the city better, a prominent member of the Black community, they deserve a prominent commemoration or recognition. And so that's why I'm curious about how over the next decade the process or processes will be for the naming. So I would love to welcome, I mean, most rooms in public facilities, at least in my ward, are unnamed. They might have a generic name of a local street, but they're not commemoratively named after a community leader. So if that exists in my ward, there are no doubt hundreds of opportunities within this city for a respectable, appropriate naming in addition to the ones that the GEAM has mentioned. So I'm very open to this. I would love to make River Ward opportunities available. Like I said, I will be supporting this motion before us today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Desroches.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just picking up on that point, I won't add to the very thoughtful remarks that have been put forward today on the merit of doing this. Picking up on the point of Councillor Brockington, I do hope that this could be very much a citywide initiative. I'm sure it will be. I think there'll be names that we put forward by communities across Ottawa. I will pitch the name of Gus Est, who was an outstanding leader in the Barrhaven community. He was a veteran of the Korean War, was an outstanding citizen and father in Nepean in Ottawa, and a founding member of the Barrhaven Legion. And I would tease Gus, he had such a large rack that if he fell into the river, he would sink. That's really a testament to how much of a service and sacrifice that he gave to the country. So I hope someone like he will be recognized. There is a park in Barrhaven named after him, but I think he fits into the family of great Canadians that we're going to honor through this exercise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for bringing this motion forward. I think it is a creative way to ensure that we don't just honor Black history in Ottawa for 1 month, but that it is a legacy of celebration and a legacy of honoring. So I am grateful, and I am grateful that you suggested that our councillor colleague Ralston King be on there. I have been a better councillor for having served with Councillor King. Councillor King, thank you for your service. There will be some new councillors around the table in the next term of council. Just a suggestion to, I guess, the clerk. During councillor school, it would be helpful to let the new councillors know that this pool of name exists. I won't pretend that city councillors don't have a significant role to play in the renamings. In the time I've served, I've been able to rename streets, parks, stages, field houses, rooms and facilities. City councillors do have an important role to play. And if we tweak them once at the beginning of a term to say, here's a pool, please consider using it, that would be helpful. Happy to support this motion. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Plante.
Yes, so happy to support this motion. I think renaming is absolutely something we can do to commemorate these historical figures. And I would remind everyone that we have the Herbert and Estelle Brown Park on Besserer Street in Sandy Hill. Please come see it. We are going to do a ceremony to inaugurate it soon. I will invite you all. If you don't know the history of Herbert and Estelle Brown Park, we've talked about this at council. They started Brown's Cleaners. They were the first Black entrepreneurs from the Caribbean, and they were well known for also hiring people from the Caribbean. So if you have a Brown's Cleaners in your area, if you don't, please come to the ceremony when we officially rename the park, because it's going to be lit. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that carried? Thank you, everyone. This one's a little less exciting. Demolition control exemption for back to the routine now. Demolition control exemption for 139 Parkdale and 122 Forward. Councillor Leeper, did you have anything to say about that?
No, I'm sorry. I don't even have the motion in front of me, colleagues. Okay. I hope you can support a waiver of demolition control on this one.
Carried? Carried. All right, we have three motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure, all of which are of a time-sensitive nature. First, a motion from Councillor Kavanagh on the west extension of LRT on suspension of the rules. Is that carried? Councillor Kavanagh?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and to my colleagues on accepting this. I'll just read it out. Whereas the residents of Byward have been disproportionately impacted by years of construction and detours associated with Stage 2 West Extension, which includes the development of 7 new stations within the ward and significant infrastructure work on the Richmond Road Complete Streets projects. Whereas Wood Park and Woodruff North neighborhoods have experienced significant and repeated disruptions, including periodic closures of Richmond, Byron, and the closure of Woodruff Avenue north of Richmond Road for several months last year. Whereas when Richmond-Woodruff intersection reopened in December 18th, the community was informed that any further closures would be of short-term duration and were surprised and disappointed to learn of a new 8-month closure of Woodruff Avenue north of Richmond Road starting in late March 2026. Whereas the infrastructure renewal project on Richmond Road will replacing aging water mains and other critical utilities and will be of immense value to the community and the city overall. And whereas the opening of the Stage 2 West Extension will also bring significant benefits and improvement to public transit access, reliability, and consideration must be given to the negative impacts of this prolonged period of and its effect on the community. Whereas this extended closure once again cuts off a main access point for the Woodruff North community, severely impacts local community businesses such as those located at 911 Richmond Road, and represents a significant disruption in the west, accessing those who access the Kitchissippi Mikan from Woodruff Avenue. And whereas the community has expressed a loss of faith in the timeline and management of this project, citing a lack of transparency and unacceptable nature of repeated unexpected long closures, therefore be it resolved that the city direct KEV, that's the Kiewit Urvia Vinci, the Stage 2 constructor, to expedite the underground utility work, permanent road work, and any related construction at the intersection of Richmond and Woodruff, allocating all resources to shorten the duration of this closure, and be further resolved that the city and KEV provide council with a clear timeline and project planning outlining the final stages of work on the LRT Stage 2 West and the Richmond Road Complete Streets project, including expected road closures and the duration by the end of Q2 2026. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to move this motion and thank the mayor for seconding it. This continues to be an ongoing situation, and it just came to a point when we found out this new lengthy closure. At this point, you'd be hard-pressed to find a neighborhood in the city that hasn't been hit by construction, but this one is particularly bad with the Stage 2 LRT extension and infrastructure renewal going on almost simultaneously. With 7 new stations located in Byward and the Richmond Road Complete Street project, residents and businesses in our community have been disproportionately impacted by the construction and detours. I'm genuinely looking forward to the LRT opening, aren't we all, in the West End, and the greater connectivity it will bring to our city. I'm also excited about the Richmond Road Complete Streets project, which will bring critical infrastructure upgrades and active transportation links to this part of the city. Residents have, for the most part, dealt with these changes gracefully. My office has also had a great working relationship with Stage 2 team, and I appreciate their responsiveness and empathy as we deal with ongoing closures. However, this latest news of an 8-month closure of a major route in our ward at Woodruff Avenue at Richmond, between Richmond and Deschênes, starting in March 2026. Well, my patient and that of the Byward residents is running thin. For a bit of a background, the Richmond Woodruff intersection was previously closed and was rescheduled several times from summer to December 2025. And when the intersection reopened in December, the information was shared to my office and with residents that any future closures would be short and intermittent. Imagine our surprise when we learned the new plans included a closure that was going to go from March 2026 to fall 2026. The residents of Woodruff North and the businesses, particularly at 911 Richmond Road, received news of this closure earlier this month and are understandably incredibly frustrated that the main access point to their neighborhood, which is to go to head south, will once again be closed.
So if I could ask you to wrap up quickly. Yeah,
okay.
thanks.
So the community deserves answers. We're asking that we work closely with the community. And I've already wanted, and I want to give a shout out to the management because I've worked with Richard Holden and Jocelyn Dake, and we're working on solutions to work with Kev on getting this work done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Lowe.
Thanks very much, Mayor. My question, I think, would be for staff. Previously, when we've had major infrastructure projects, so in my mind, I'm thinking when Queen Street was closed for stage 1, when we've had Bank Street closed for that revitalization, Montreal Road, Elgin Street. I do recall motions from council that would say, you know, let's put up some businesses open as usual signs, you know, provide some of that nominal support in that way. But have we ever moved motions at council that asks a contractor to hurry it up at all?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of any such motions.
Okay. My worry about this motion is that we're applying this, it is political pressure in a way on a project. And, you know, that was one of the recommendations from the LRT public inquiry that we should not do. And even though the infrastructure closure is not necessarily LRT related, you know, it's still a project, still a major infrastructure project. And you know, if there's important underground utilities there that need to be properly built and placed into the ground, I don't believe it is our place to tell the constructor to hurry up at the risk of anything really that could happen afterwards. So I'm not gonna support this. And thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brockington.
Well, I take a different view. If it was my ward at 2 major arterial road intersections for the period of time that the local councillor just explained, I would be doing everything I can to advance this work. My only concern is, what is this going to cost? Because a contractor will say, yeah, the art of possible is there, but if we have to double our human resource capacity on the site and work 24 hours a day, we want the city to compensate us. So if we pass this, what is staff's understanding of the word direct? Is it simply just say, hey, can you please go faster? Or are you going to have a negotiation where, yeah, we can go faster, but we're going to have to add additional personnel on site and it's going to cost X? What is likely the conversation going to look like?
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. You know, at this point, we'd be looking at working with Kev on exploring all options to minimize or to reduce the length of time it takes to do the work. And then to your point, that could be working 24 hours a day and including weekends. There'd also be a benefit in them if they were able to shorten that time period down as well too. So there is a potential cost savings on one side of it, but increased costs by condensing it down. At this point, it's too early for us to determine whether or not there'd be some increased costs, but I think to your point, there is that possibility that there would be an increased sum attached with that, but we know that there's other contractual matters that could be packaged together to control the costs and just focus on getting that work done as quickly as possible to minimize the impact for the residents in the area.
Okay, and the result of that discussion or negotiation, staff have the delegated authority to make a decision, even if there's an additional cost?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so I support the motion before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Great, good discussion, and I'll just say the East End has been feeling a lot of pain for many, many years. As a matter of fact, I think they're still cleaning stuff up, like they're not really complete yet. There's still some closures. And where we've gone through a lot of this stuff in the past, where we've asked them to speed it up, the 4 councillors got together and we've spoken with the builder, the constructor on several occasions. We've seen where, the closures have not been perfectly aligned, and we've had over hundreds of closures over the stretch, where you only have Innes Road and Maryville Road, Innes Road and Montreal Road. And when they close one up, it all goes through all the other communities. You see businesses that have lost out tons of money because people can't even get in their parking lot. So while we say disproportionate, we've been living the dream for many years. We've also discovered that we don't actually have the ability to change or force them to speed up. Because it's, and I'll go to my question, this is a bundled contract, right? Like, this is where I'm trying to understand, and the previous councillor had some great questions on that. Is this not all bundled? Like, if this is just a feel-good motion and we're asking them to do it, great. But there's nothing compelling RTG or any of the construction outfit to speed things up at our request, is there? Because we've tried to do that in the East for a long time. And if it would have said, yeah, let's throw more money at it to force their hand, that would have been great. But we were unsuccessful, so why is this different?
Mr. Mayor, I think with this specific work, there are opportunities that they could look at that could potentially expedite the work. I can't make any guarantees on that, but that's something that we're willing to explore. And as well, working with the councillor's office, we're looking at options as the way we can improve the movements for local residents in the area, keeping the businesses supported, as well as the local community being able to get around it as easily as possible. So there are some opportunities there that we're seeking Kev to further explore. So specific to this location, I think there are some things that can be explored and looked at.
Okay, so you were part of a lot of the conversations, and Richard as well, with the East. Were these same things, and they were quite heated meetings, was there not the same kind of opportunities expressed to them there, and how successful was it? Was it a matter of money? Because that's where I'm kind of confused right now. Are we looking at funding more of this after we've gone through many years in the East End with these challenges? And I see my councillor colleague has his hand up because I'm kind of perplexed by this. So will this cost taxpayers more money to do this? Something that wasn't, we weren't given the same benefit in the East End over many years.
To Mr. Mayor, I think, with respect to the East End, understand the frustration, the challenges with the length of time it took to complete some work, but there were some opportunities in where we were able to expedite the work, but it also really need to look at the work that happens and what is occurring. And Sometimes there's opportunities to do nighttime work and weekend work, and other times there's not. I know some of the work around the 174 and the lanes and lane closures was problematic, but there also were some opportunities where we were able to minimize those impacts. But it sort of went both ways depending on what that issue were. In terms of the cost aspect of things, it's too early for me to comment on that. But I know that there is still a lot of work remaining with all the bundled work, and there's always, these projects of this size, there's always those series of puts and takes that can be considered.
I guess my memory is different than yours. I don't remember any opportunities that were exercised to help out with the East End. It's bundled. If there's more money applied, I can't vote for this because I'm basically saying, the East End, we could have used money, collectively 4 wards, to expedite our many years. We're well over by like 2 years in the East End. Businesses have suffered. Why is everything east of Samoa Boulevard? It seems like it's almost forgotten half the time. And we have this one in the west. I just want to make sure that if there's $1 more spent in the west versus the east to solve this issue, I can't support this because we should have been afforded this opportunity as well. Will there be more money spent?
So my understanding from what you're saying, you can correct me, but to clarify, but you're saying that in the East End, when there were opportunities to work evenings and weekends and to accelerate the timetable to minimize the considerable disruption that happened in the East End, you tried to take those opportunities, and that this motion is asking to do something similar in the area of Richmond and Woodruff. Is that right?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
But I just want to be clear. Was there any additional money spent in the East End to expedite things? Or was it just a simple ask? Because we were told several times by RTG, they wouldn't even modify their construction schedule because it was a bundled cost and they had to work it within what we provided them. So I just want to be sure this is the exact same thing where there won't be any more money spent. It's within the bundle. So it's just basically asking, but they're going to tell us to pound salt.
Mr. Mayor, that would be our intent, is to manage it all within the current cost envelope that we have.
Oh, okay, it's a nothing motion. So there's no more money. Great, I'm good. That's fine then.
Okay, Councillor Luloff.
I'd just like to say that doing the work as fast as possible with the least impact on residents should be a general principle and a best practice. It shouldn't require a motion at council. Just do this every time, please. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And just to be clear, in response to a previous question, there's nothing that is being proposed here that would contravene the findings of the public inquiry. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kavanagh?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to my colleagues for their questions. Just so you understand, this is for the Richmond Road Complete Street project, and this is replacing water mains. So it's not the LRT. It's a bundled project. It goes all the way from Quarry Avenue right out to Lincoln Field. What we're dealing with here is the pinch point because of the fact that the water mains were there at Woodruff and Richmond Road. And so because it has to be closed entirely, it's very difficult. So we're asking them to prioritize it. They're doing all that work all the way along this whole stretch. And this part is particularly complex. And we're working with them. And if we can do some focus to get this done, it's already, like they are working on all these different sections all at the same time. But we're asking for a focus because of the difficulty, the stress. It's not the same as the East End. This is a major route to get to the Kitchissippi-Meekan, and there is a community that has no choice but to only use the Kitchissippi-Meekan, and they can't even go westbound because they have to do a turnaround at Westboro Beach because they're landlocked. So it's pretty extreme, and it does need consideration. I'm very happy that Richard Holden and Jocelyn Degg were working with me to advise, and I think we have a way forward. I think it's important. And one of the things in the motion is the fact that we're asking for reliable timelines, because that was part of the problem, is the surprise. To say earlier, well, you know, it'll just be intermittent and short, and now we're hearing 8 months. So we need clear timelines so that people can plan. It is difficult, and we've been dealing with this for 6 years, because with the combination of both the Stage 2 LRT and then with the Richmond Road Complete Streets, it's been pretty massive construction. So right there in front of people's houses, the businesses are on the verge of going under because they're totally cut off. So I appreciate your support on this motion to focus on this part, and I believe it's very doable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that carried?
Dissent.
Carried.
We have one dissent. Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill has a motion regarding Councillor Lowe's participation with CUDA on suspension of the rules. Is that carried? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas the City of Ottawa is a member of the Canadian Urban Transit Association, CUDA, and whereas CUDA is comprised of municipal elected officials from across Canada and provides a venue for discussion and the promotion of public transportation amongst municipal decision makers and serves as a forum to share knowledge, insights, and experience, and help identify new and prevailing issues of interest to the sector and aid in addressing them. And whereas Councillor Wilson Lowe is a member of the CUDA Board of Directors, and whereas Councillor Wilson Lowe is a member of the CUDA Transit Board Members Committee, TBMC, and whereas Councillor Lowe has also accepted a request from the Nomination Committee to let his name stand for re-election for a second term on the CUDA Board of Directors, and whereas Councillor Lowe has accepted a request for reappointment to CUDA's TBMC, and whereas the elections to the Board of Directors and meetings of the Board of Directors and TBMC will take place at the CUDA Spring Summit and Annual General Meeting, and whereas the CUDA Spring Summit and Annual General Meeting is taking place May 31 to June 2nd, 2026 in Quebec City, Quebec, and whereas if re-elected to the Board of Directors, the expectation is that Councillor Lowe may also attend the CUDA Annual Conference and Transit Show taking place November 15 to 18, 2026 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And whereas if a member of council is participating on a board in their capacity related to their role as a member, that participation be approved by council. And whereas subject to council approval, the council administration budget will fund the travel costs associated with the participation of council's representatives to external municipal organizations. And whereas all city funded travel shall be subject to the requirements of council expense policy, therefore be it resolved that council approve the continued participation of Councillor Wilson Lowe as a member of the Board of Directors of the Canadian Urban Transit Associations, subject to re-election at the CUDA Spring Summit and Annual General Meeting, and be it further resolved that Council approve the continued participation of Councillor Wilson Lowe as a member of CUDA's Transit Board Members Committee, TBMC, and be it further resolved that Council approve the attendance of Councillor Lowe at the CUDA Spring Summit and Annual General Meeting taking place May 31st to June 2nd, 2026 in Quebec City, Quebec, and subject to re-election to Council at the Annual Conference and Transit Show taking place November 15 to 18, 2026 in Winnipeg, and be it further resolved that Council administration budget will fund the costs for Councillor Lowe's participation in the CUDA Spring Summit and Annual General Meeting Conference, the Annual Conference and Transit Show, and any meetings and activities of the Board of Directors.
Okay, that was unnecessarily long, I'm just going to say. Too many whereas clauses. Okay, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. We're approving travel for the next term of council, but it's subject to re-election. And so if there's, by chance, Councillor Lowe's not re-elected or whatever happens, does someone else go in that space or what happens there? Or it just dies?
Mr. Mayor, they're generally, depending on the terms and conditions of the registration, there might be the opportunity to transfer that to a different member of council to attend.
Okay, thanks. I find it odd that an organization like CUDA with municipal representation would schedule a conference, but you never know what happens. But thank you.
Thank you. Maybe that should have been covered in another whereas clause. Councillor Lowe?
Can I amend it?
make a brief comment that CUDA is a national organization, so municipal elections do happen at different times across the country. In Ontario and BC, it just happens to be October of this year. Last year we had municipal elections, I think, in Quebec and Alberta. So this does happen from time to time. Yes, it is weird, but it does happen from time to time because it is a national organization.
Okay, is that carried? Councillor Leeper has a motion related to the new zoning bylaw on suspension of the rules. Is that carried? Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Mayor. My colleague, ever helpful, good friend, Councillor Brockington, tells me my speech on the demolition control waiver was horrible. This one will be worse. This is the enactment of the new zoning bylaw, whereas the enacting bylaw for the new zoning bylaw is included in the council meeting agenda for March 11, 2026 under 23.1, 3 readings. Oh, we've already waived it. Whereas the report for the new zoning bylaw included a recommendation that if the minister's approval is not provided prior to enactment of the new zoning bylaw, staff be directed to replace provisions in the new zoning bylaw that implement official plan amendment 46 with provisions that conform to the policies currently in the official plan. And whereas OPA 46 is considered to be in the final stages of its approval by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and whereas Section 24 of the Planning Act allows approval of a zoning bylaw amendment that implements an official plan amendment approved by Council where the OPA is not yet fully in effect, therefore be it resolved that the enacting bylaw for the new zoning bylaw, Bylaw 2026-50, implementing OPA 46, proceed to third reading at the Council meeting on March 11th, 2026. I don't know whether we might ask the General Manager just to give us a quick understanding of what this is.
It's not obvious. So this one here is to recognize that when this came forward originally with the zoning package that council approved, the language said that you would be bringing forward the bylaw once approved by once a related official plan amendment was approved, because we wrote the zoning bylaw assuming that those official plan changes related to major transit stations largely would be already implemented. This is to buy us some more time. We have talked to the ministry. We're pretty confident that we're very, very, very close to getting a response back from the minister, but we don't yet have it. So this gives us an opportunity to allow the zoning bylaw to be approved by council today and go through the appeal period, and this will all catch up. And there's a section in the Planning Act that speaks to this.
Okay, thank you. Is that carried? Notices of motion. Councillor Kelly, I believe you have 2.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Start with the public-facing organizational chart and staff directory. Whereas members of council are elected to represent City of Ottawa residents and expect transparency, accessibility, and accountability from their municipal government. Whereas residents, community organizations, and stakeholders regularly seek to understand how the city is structured and which branches or officials are responsible for specific programs and services. And whereas the absence of a clear public-facing organizational chart and staff directory can create barriers to service access, delay issue resolution, and increase reliance on councillors' offices as intermediaries. And whereas providing general organizational information and appropriate contact points does not replace existing service channels such as 311, but instead helps residents better understand how municipal services are organized, and whereas many large Canadian municipalities maintain public-facing organizational charts and staff directories as best practice in transparency and customer service, including but not limited to the City of Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Hamilton. And whereas providing high-level organizational information and appropriate staff contact details can improve service efficiency, reduce misdirected inquiries, and enhance public trust in municipal administration. Therefore, be it resolved, the City Council direct the City Manager to establish and maintain a public-facing City of Ottawa organizational chart accessible through the City's website that clearly identifies departments, branches, and senior management reporting relationships. Be it further resolved, the City Council direct the City Manager to establish and maintain a public-facing staff directory with appropriate privacy protections that includes, at a minimum, names and titles of senior leadership and key branch contacts, departmental or functional contact information, clear descriptions of areas of responsibility to assist the public in directing inquiries appropriately, And be it further resolved that the public-facing organizational chart and staff directory be designed to be easily navigable, regularly updated, and written in plain language. And be it further resolved that the city manager ensure that any exclusions or limitations in the directory are clearly explained and are based on operational privacy or safety considerations. And be it further resolved that the city manager report back to council within 90 days of adoption of this motion with the proposed scope and format of the public-facing organizational chart and staff directory. At a minimum, it should include the names and titles of senior leadership, directors, managers, and key branch contacts, departmental or functional contact information, clear descriptions of areas of responsibility to assist the public in directing inquiries appropriately, and examples of comparable practices from other municipalities and implications associated with implementing an organizational chart and directory. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That's number one. Number two is service standards for councillor responses. Whereas members of council are elected by residents to represent them at the City of Ottawa, and residents expect that when they reach out to their elected officials, they will receive timely and respectful responses. And whereas members of council rely on timely, accurate, and complete information from city staff in order to respond to residents, address time-sensitive constituency matters, and make informed decisions. And whereas clear and consistent internal service standards support accountability, transparency, and effective collaboration between members of council and city staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the City Council direct the City Manager to establish and implement a corporate service standard for responses to requests from members of council and councillors' offices, applicable across all departments and supported by a centralized tracking mechanism. And be it further resolved that the service standard include at a minimum the following elements. Number one, scope and definitions. Define councillor office request and clarify that the service standard does not replace formal council or committee reports, statutory timelines, or legislative processes. Definitions shall include when the response timeline begins, as well as definitions for acknowledgement, interim update, and substantive response. Number two, acknowledgement timeline. Staff shall provide an acknowledgement within 1 business day of receipt of a request, including the assigned staff lead, a tracking reference number, and a target date for the substantive response or first interim update. Each department shall identify a designated alternate contact to ensure acknowledgements are issued during staff absences. Be it further resolved that the service standard include at a minimum the following. 1, substantive response timeline, routine requests. For routine requests, staff shall provide substantive response within 5 business days of receipt. For complex requests, where a request requires coordination across departments, research, or additional analysis, staff shall provide an interim update within 5 business days, outlining the work required and providing an estimated response date. A substantive response should normally be provided within 20 business days unless extended in accordance with this service standard. Number 3, missed timelines. If staff cannot meet a prescribed timeline, they must provide an update prior to the deadline outlining the reason for delay, work completed to date, a revised target date, and the timing of the next update. Updates shall be provided at least every 5 business days until the request is resolved. Number 4, urgent matters. The service standard shall include urgent request category with the acknowledgement the same business day or within 4 hours during business hours, and an interim update within 1 business day. Number 5, escalation process. The service standard shall include a clear escalation pathway for overdue responses through departmental management levels up to and including the city manager's office. Number 6, tracking and reporting. The city shall implement a centralized tracking mechanism for councillor office requests and provide quarterly corporate performance summaries to members of council, including request volume and on-time response metrics by department. Be it further resolved that the city manager report back to council with the finalized service standards and implementation details within 90 days of adoption of this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the I Heart Barrhaven Market is a semi-annual event organized by the Ottawa Farmers Market in partnership with locally crafted markets in the Barrhaven Business Improvement Area, promoting the usual local farmers plus guest artisan and business vendors. Whereas the market is scheduled for Sunday the 14th of June 2026 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Nepean Woods Park and Ride, and whereas vendors require 2 hours before and after the market for setup and tear down. Whereas the market has steadily grown in popularity, becoming one of Barrhaven's central and most looked forward to regular events and increasing pressure on parking availability at the park and ride. Whereas potential additional guest vendor space was identified on the bus-only ramp connecting eastbound buses from Nepean Woods Station with eastbound Strandherd Drive adjacent to the parking lot. And whereas within the proposed closure timeframe, trips on routes 70, 74, and 99 will need to be placed on a minor detour, which adds 60 to 90 seconds to trip time, with no impacts to bus stops, no modifications to stop assignments at Nepean Wood Station, and no impact to the turnaround loop for Route 80. Therefore, be resolved that Council approve the closure of the bus-only ramp from Nepean Wood Station to Strandherd Drive on Sunday, the 14th of June, 2026, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the iHeart Barrhaven Market, and be it further resolved that the cost of pylons to demarcate the closed areas and an accessible temporary curb ramp be covered by the event organizers. Thank you.
Thank you. I will note the notices of intent on the agenda. So we are going to recess there and move in camera and resume at 2 o'clock. So just before we wrap up this portion, I'll ask Councillor Lowe to read the motion for us to resolve in camera.
Thank you, Mayor. Be resolved that City Council resolve in camera beginning at 2 p.m. pursuant to the Procedure Bylaw 2025-100 subsections 13.1e, litigation or potential litigation affecting the city, and 13.1f, the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with respect to light rail transit legal updates.
Okay, thank you. Is that carried? We will begin the closed session at 2 p.m. Thank you.